Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this City Commission workshop, December 16th, 6:30 to order. We have two items on our agenda tonight, but both of them are likely to cause some in-depth conversation. So we want to go ahead and jump right in. Commissioner Mazon is absent tonight. Commissioner Farnsworth will join us shortly. We'll welcome him in. So do I have an approval of the agenda as it has been published?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions, motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Let's jump right into City Roads. Commission has been eagerly anticipating. And Jamie, as you make your way down, we have two kind of things going. One is a special assessment for roads. This is Commissioner Coleman's idea about put it on the ballot to have a millage rate and fund all the roads. Is that right? Okay.
That is correct.
Want to make sure we know those are separate but related. That's not Commissioner Coleman. It came out of a workshop, but he said, hey, put it on the ballot, right?
No, okay.
Yeah, out of a workshop. All right, it's his idea.
Well, this is the roadway segment of the workshop. We asked the commission to receive the presentation and provide feedback to staff. We do have a PowerPoint that's probably got more information than you need or want. So to kind of boil that down a little bit, what we're looking for is for the commission to direct staff on the following. Can you hear me now? Green light's on.
That's generally just Jamie's volume.
I'll try to lean into it a little bit. Is that better?
Yeah.
So we're going to go through basically the unpaved roads that we have in our inventory. And what we're looking for direction on is, if we don't have land rights on the road, do you want us to get land rights, yes or no? As far as stormwater, do you want us to do full-blown stormwater design, or do you want us to apply for the Dusty Road exemption and see if we qualify on that road for that? Do you want us to chip seal the road or pave the road? And from that, we'll come up with a total for a potential general obligation bond. And we're looking for direction as to whether the commission would want to move forward with general obligation bond. There's money right there. And then we'll give you the total potential amount of that bonds. So some of the discussion points, as I touched on, is land rights. If we do not have land rights to a road, we're assuming that we have prescription rights, or we do have prescriptive rights. It basically means that we've got a right to what we've been maintaining. We really don't have the ability to widen or construct stormwater retention with that. We can file a maintenance map, which there's some surveying that goes along with that, and it's filed in the public record, and it formalizes those prescriptive rights, but you still have no ability to widen or improve the road with that. If you do want to go through the full process to procure land rights, depending on whether it's a local street or on a section line, your land development regulations identifies whether it has to be 60-foot or 80-foot wide right-of-way. There is some acquisition required for that requires specialized staffing, basically a right-of-way agent. There's a survey and appraisal. We've done some of that, as the commission may recall, on Southwest 30th. And from that, you negotiate and do the legal documents to actually convey that property. We have, on one of our road projects, we have an estimate from a right-of-way agent firm at $8,500 a parcel. And then if you're compensating the property owners for the parcel, you can assume $10,000 to $15,000 per acre for the impacted area. So, as I stated about the Dusty Road exemption, some of these roads may qualify for the Dusty Road exemption. So you,
Jamie, not every commissioner is fully up to speed on what a Dusty Road exemption is.
So the Swanee River Water Management District, and we'll get into it a little further in the presentation, will identify what it means. But basically, there's an exemption you can apply for where you don't have to do full stormwater treatment. If you're doing certain improvements to the road, you're not realigning it, you have prescriptive rights or rights to the road, and you've been maintaining it. But a little further in the presentation, I'll elaborate on that a little more. If you do want to do full stormwater design, naturally, as we said, you've got to have additional right-of-way to accommodate that. If the roadway segment happens to be in our utility service area, we have to look at it, but regardless if you chip seal it or pave it, to see if there's any needed sewer extensions, water extensions, electric line extensions before we actually improve the roadway surface. And then for the driving surface, as I stated, if it's unpaved, chip seal or pavement, if it was a paved road, whether you reclaim it or resurface it. But our focus tonight is primarily on the Class 1 roadways, the unpaved roads in Newberry. I think the commission's seen this before. We divide the city up into 4 quadrants for our inventory. We provided an example of that inventory in the past where we've identified speed limits and condition of road, ownership, whether it has sidewalks, streetlights, so on and so forth. And we identified the last time we came before the commission that we have quite a few projects in the capital improvement project now. We currently have about 9.1 miles of Class 1 unpaved roadway within the city limits. Some more of our capital improvement roadway projects that are funded. You've seen this as part of the budget process. So some of the candidate street segments that we're going to talk about tonight is the downtown streets, and then we'll talk about the overall map. A few of these, you've seen these from the local roadway presentation. Northwest 1st Avenue, another segment of Northwest 1st Avenue. As I go through these in the core part of downtown, all of these roads, in my opinion, are candidates for chip seal and for applying for the dusty road exemption. They're not collector roads, they're not arterial roads, they're not roads that are subject to heavy truck traffic, agricultural traffic, things of that nature. There's a segment of Northwest 5th Avenue that would potentially be a good chip seal candidate. 6th Avenue, this is adjacent to the railroad right-of-way. 255th, this is the area from north of City Hall, meets 6th Avenue at the Martin Luther King Center. There are several unpaved roadways there.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Jamie, I've been back through that area quite a bit, and it occurs to me that maybe not even need every one of those roads that are back there. But was there anything when you were going through this process of, hey, maybe we don't really even need this little piece or this little segment and we can just give that up or something?
I know, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Martin, we really hadn't studied that. Most of those roadway segments have utilities on them. There is a kind of curiously aligned intersection at 255th and 4th that I think needs to be adjusted and addressed. There is a segment just north of that on 255th between 5th Avenue and 4th Avenue where we need to make a short sewer extension before the road's paved. If the commissioner recall,
Maybe that's more of what I'm thinking.
If the commissioner recall, we applied for a grant to do something with those roads here a couple of years back because it's a low to moderate income area. We didn't qualify then, or we didn't get the grant then. I believe that we have an application in now to attempt to qualify for a grant. Another segment in that same area, segment over off of Northwest 265th and 1st Avenue. There's a couple of short unpaved sections there. We were trying and still are trying to tie them into some resurfacing that we will do on Northwest 266th Street. And then further out of town, away from the core utility areas, you're looking at Southwest 30th Avenue, the segment east of 2741. There is a segment west of 337 that we maintain for the county, but that's not a city street. Holder grade, the segments of that would remind the commission, if you can see that inset map over to the right, those green segments were the segments we identified that were the county attempted to convey to the city after 1995 that you formally have to accept. So those are still county road segments. And the section to the right of that red towards the bottom of the screen, Northwest 8th Lane, there's a segment there that still belongs to the county that comes back and ties into the paved part of Northwest 266. That is the county still.
Do they give us money to help?
No, sir.
Why do we mess with it?
You're in an interlocal agreement that you will maintain so much for them and they'll maintain so much for you. I think we,
Wash on what we do for them?
no, sir, they maintain about 2.2, 2.3 miles for us. Last time I looked, we were about 17 miles for them. We brought that to the commission's attention a few years back. We were working on potentially addressing that issue. It is an interlocal agreement. There is some notice requirements in there if the commission decided not to continue to maintain those.
Mr. Newdy, you want to add to that?
Just to share a perspective, former Mayor Conrad, when he was explaining it all to me, acknowledged that while those aren't the city's roads to maintain, that generally the property on either side of the road are tax-paying Newberry residents, and that's how it got to be, was trying to make sure that there was a level of service for our residents on those roads. I'm not defending it one way or the other. That was just one elected official's explanation to me
Well, I mean,
when I started work here.
My point is here, it seems like we're always arguing about the money, and 17-3 seems like somebody owes us some money. I mean, are we gonna chip seal it or pave it? Will they help?
We get a
Could they
local
possibly
option.
do that? I mean, maybe? Could
We-
we ask them?
We do get local option sales tax on the miles that we maintain, not the miles that we own road right-of-way for. So the last time we negotiated the local option fuel tax agreement, which was probably 6 or 8 years ago now, we got the county to agree to provide us with the funding on the road miles that we maintain.
So, and I see these things, I think 30th is one too, Jamie, if I'm not mistaken. Ain't there a piece out there that's city and one's county in there, you know, in a
East-
200 yards or
Thank
something?
Well, east of 2741, with the exception of a very small section before you get to 202, that road is the city's.
So the very small section is county.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm asking. Will they, I mean, every dime that we use on the roads is important. Are they gonna help us, or if we do something, will they kinda, you know, this green, I don't know how many feet this is, but looks pretty good in one section. Would they be willing to help us out?
I'm sure that we could have a conversation with them.
Just.
There is-
I mean,
There
it
is
was a
a-
hard-fought battle to get the gas tax representing the mileage that we take care of. I mean, I just, without going through the history, it's gonna be a long night. I don't wanna go back through that debate.
No, I got it, but
If you guys decide to chip seal a road and part of that is owned by the county, it would be a conversation if they're gonna participate or not.
okay.
Well, and to that end, just historically, the city of Newberry chip sealed Southwest 15th on it, but they actually paid the county to do so, and it's a county road. We maintain it, but they chip sealed it, and the city paid for it.
Dallas?
I just want to remind the commission as well, the county did have a road paving grant for $333,333.33 that the commission applied for Southwest 15th for, so we did receive that funding from the county for a road paving project.
Let's not get off on a tangent.
No, no,
Yeah.
just say that, so we got a grant to do 15 from them or a portion of something.
Some of the maintenance, we're not, don't walk out thinking we're about to go re-chip seal 15th. That's not,
Sounds to me like we got $333,000 to start a project.
This
Right.
piece we're about to construct.
right. Not on this side of 15th, which I thought that we couldn't get a grant for that, but 330,000 in chip seal in Southwest 15th over again.
Not even close.
Right.
So another segment that, is more away from our core downtown is the Watermelon Pond intersection. The inset over to the right is not quite accurate. We don't own, the city does not own the road all the way to the park. We own it the majority of the way. The last small segment belongs to the county. So same discussion points about land rights, maintenance mapping, whether you do, if you do move forward with the land rights, how do you procure them, and the LDR associated with that.
Wait, can you go back 2 slides now? So, Jamie, are you saying that if the commission wants to go after a road that we've got to procure land rights, you're estimating $8,500 per parcel to get those rights? Is that legal fees and buying it? That's
No, if you look, the 8,500 is.
that's just the legal fees, surveying.
Yeah, we've got, that's actually not even the surveying, we've got the surveying complete. We have, as you recall, we were working with the FDOT's right-of-way agent to do the conveyance of First Avenue and subordination of rights there. And she opened not only my eyes, but I believe the rest of the staff's eyes about how complicated that process is, the actual legal documents to convey that, the negotiating with the property owners, the appraisals is tied to that, and all to meet state statute. We actually, I'd actually attempted to see if she would work for us, OPS when she wasn't working for FDOT, but she's prohibited from doing that. But there's several firms in the state of Florida. She recommended this firm. We were able to negotiate their price down to that. It was over $10,000 a parcel. And that's assuming that you would pay $10,000 to $15,000 per acre. If you recall from the Southwest 30th survey, where we were looking to do right-of-way there, the majority of those parcels, the portion that we would need to get for right-of-way was less than 1.6 acres. Quite a few of them were 1/10 of an acre, 2/10 of an acre, or whatnot. But there is some cost associated with that. Same points about utilities. So this kind of breaks out that acquisition cost based on the width and what you would be picking up in the land cost. So as I stated earlier, here's some information right out of statute or Florida Administrative Code about the Dusty Road exemption. A couple things to highlight there. Has been publicly used and under county or municipal ownership and maintenance. Thereafter, including when they have been presumed to have been dedicated in accordance with that Florida statute. The work does not realign the road, expand the number of traffic lanes of the existing road, may include safety shoulders, so on and so forth. Roadside swales or other effective means of stormwater treatment are incorporated. So you're not doing full-blown stormwater, but it does not totally exempt you from stormwater either. And you have to file a notice of intent with the Water Management District to use the exemption, and then they determine if you qualify for the exemption or not.
Jack, before you leave the dusty roads, because what I don't want to build another road like 15th. And my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is the reason 15th is so bad, lots of factors, right? Way too much traffic for a chip seal road. Something in the technology of chip sealing changed, we can do that better, but primarily the county didn't do any storm water, so the water gets up underneath it and creates the pockets.
You don't have land rights to that road segment. They basically paved or chip sealed, the surface, the ruts where people were driving. It doesn't have established base under it. You have the high banks due to all the vegetation, the water oaks that you see on both sides. So, as I've stated to the commission before, chip seal is a surface treatment, not a structural treatment to a road. And the life of the road is getting the water off of it. When there's no other option but the water to run down the road, it finds a crack or a pore, gets under. The example I've used for the commission before is no different than water gets under the paint on your house. It lifts the paint peels. In this case, instead of paint peeling, a pothole occurs.
But the dusty road exemption is an option for us that helps out considerably, but how do we take advantage of the dusty road exemption without recreating 15th?
You don't. Basically, what you can do is either chip seal what you got. If you have any flat ground or way to convey stormwater, you take advantage of those areas where you can. The rest of it is just sheet flow and it goes where it may.
Because you're not acquiring any property rights.
You're not
just putting
acquiring
chip
any
seal over
property,
what's
you're
there.
not expanding, you're
There's
not
no way to blend them
realigning.
together.
Sir?
There's no way to blend, say, I'm gonna take the Dusty Road exemption because I have an established, let's take 30th as an example, right? I've got an established road that the city and the county have maintained. It's veered off the section line, right? And in order for us to get it back on the section line, we gotta buy all this property and people don't wanna sell, right? So our ability to just go in and say, well, we're gonna apply for the Dusty Road, there's no way to say we're applying for the Dusty Road, but we are able to look at where the water's gonna puddle, and address it in some other mean?
Well,
Or is it,
you can't realign, but if you'll notice, we've tried to take advantage on 30th Avenue already. So if you come west on 30th Avenue, once you get about quarter to a half mile from 2741, you'll see we ditched it to the south. There was some wide flat ground there. We were able to hold all the stormwater for the most part. There's a crown of the hill, and Commissioner Clark's familiar with it, east of there. We've tried to break all the stormwater to the west at that point, break it where we can to the east. Some of that ends up going north and sheet flows off into those parcels. Some of it ends up going east and south and sheet flows into the low-lying areas there.
did the county use the Dusty Road exemption when they did 15th?
I
Because
have
we
no-
paid for it, but they did it.
I have no idea, but I can research that, Mr. Mayor.
I'm just curious.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Clark?
I mean, so this, I'm not gonna get in a tangent about this, because this thing could go on for a long time, because I personally called these people. I mean, there's a lot goes on with these roads, and when I talk to them, I understand Jamie's position where he's at, but when I talk to him, send me an email, do what you gotta do in Newberry, we ain't coming to inspect. Jamie's all worried about the stormwater, I got that. But what I'm saying is, out there, I live there. On the hurricane times, where we get, Billy Belts is willing to help. He owns 80 acres. He's willing to help anything we need on his side, he's willing to help. There's 2 or 3 already natural ones on my property, where it comes from 2 sides of a hill. It goes down there during the hurricane, dries up within 2 days, it's gone. And there's those holes all along there. So we could do something with and you've done how many loads of lime rock? I mean, we put a lot of lime rock.
We've
Over the
established-
last 2 years, you've done a lot.
We've
So
established,
that base is really, really established. I know what you're talking about, Joe Hunt's side. If you do it, then they get all mad. But here's the real. If you went back and took the exact 30th Avenue, Jamie, and we put it back to grade, water's gonna flow where water flows. Guess where it's gonna flow? To the same area it's flowing right now. So I understand we're 2 foot down in some places, 10 inches in others. It's gonna flow where it flows. So if we put it back to grade, that's fine too. It's gonna flow right where it flows today. But I'm saying Billy Belts is willing to help, I'm willing to help. There's already 2 or 3 sinks on that road. I think with your stormwater assessment, we could get this provision done pretty quick under the Dusty Road Act.
And this drastically, for the commission, this drastically changes the cost. So at the end of this, what staff needs is, what are the factors that you're willing to go in and say, we want to do this, and we're willing to take on X amount of prescriptive roads, and we really want to go ahead and move forward on roads we already got rights to. We want to pave these roads, we want to chip seal these roads.
Yeah.
Well, paving 30th, we've hit a wall with getting it back onto the section line. The property owners, they don't want it. They don't want it to happen, because we're having to move the road 40, 50 feet in some places. And for whatever reason, I still haven't wrapped my head around, we can't just start with, take the road and pave it the way it is, right? I know there's an answer, I just, it's one of those things I just disagree with government about, but it is what it is. So now we're kind of down to, what else can we do there? And I think that this Dusty Road exemption conversation is gonna apply to a lot more roads around that, in my mind, may be actually better candidates for chip seal road than 30th is, because my concern about 30 is I think that's gonna become it's gonna become trafficked, right? If you chip seal that road, there's gonna be a lot of folks down there. And I always go back to 266,
Yes, sir.
right, between, that was chip sealed about a year, 2 years after 15th. And that road, for the most part, good shape, right? But when you look at the difference in trips between that road, now, I used to live on that road, so the city took better care of it. For me, obviously, that was why, and they chip sealed it in the first place. But when you look at that road and you look at 15th, both about the same age, and there's a world of difference. When I ride down 15th, I mean, it'll rattle your teeth out, you know? But I think it's the stormwater, and I think it's the number of trips.
And it's the base they didn't do right.
Yeah.
As Jamie mentioned in the
Yeah.
beginning,
And if we do dusty roads, but we're willing to invest in the base, right? Is there a compromise in between where the commission can take advantage of this exemption, and I don't have to go out and spend $20,000 per parcel to get property rights? I can just do a treatment to the road as it exists, but not create, because now I look at Southwest 15th and I think that road's gonna be a fortune to fix that road. You're gonna have to start all over.
you tear it up.
You gotta tear the whole daggone thing
Tear
up
it
and
up.
start all over. And I don't wanna put a commission 20 years from now and they've got 10 miles or 10 roads that are in Southwest 15th. So I'm really interested in this exemption, and is there a balance, right? If we put more money in the base, right? I don't know what that balance is, but I think it's a worthwhile for the commission to put your brains towards what is that compromise? Because otherwise, if we can't use this, it's gonna get mighty expensive pretty quick.
Well, after Commissioner Clark's conversation with the Water Management District, I called Leroy Marshall, and he put me in touch with the engineer that oversees the Dusty Road exemption. This language is what he sent me. He said he would be glad for us to send a notice of intent. He would look at it project by project to see which ones qualified and which one didn't. And he didn't say that you had to do full-blown stormwater treatment, and I'm not saying you have to do full-blown stormwater treatment, but you have to take advantage of the areas where you can.
Well, for us as a collective group and as a team, I do know if we get out, there's people there who are willing to help. You got power line easements on one side of the road that we can take advantage of. Billy Belts owns private property. There's private property down further where the Fry's, where that power line crosses over, that's fields. I mean, there's ways to do it. And the people there would most likely be willing to go over a little bit for a little bit of stormwater. I ain't talking about digging retention ponds. I ain't talking about digging 10 acres up. I'm just talking about getting over there between the power lines, the easements, and then you can swell some of that.
And that's basically what it says,
Yeah,
that you
and
have.
you could do that, and we
you
know
have-
where the collection is.
You have to identify some swale areas and do some
And we
stormwater
could.
treatment.
All right, listen, I want to find out if 46 is rights or prescriptive, so let's keep on going here. Yeah, I want to find out if 46 is a prescriptive road or we have rights.
So this just demonstrates that where you would put utilities in the right-of-way and utility allocation, and that speaks to the area I was speaking to close to Martin Luther King, where we need to make that small sewer extension. You always go ahead and do any underground utility work before you pave the road. So you've got unpaved surfaces now, some are sand and dirt. We've been fortunate enough that the commission has been able to budget for a good amount of lime rock over quite a period of time, and we've got quite a few of these roads with a good established lime rock base. And as I said, you got a decision to make of which roads that you chip seal and which roads you pave.
Jamie, I know one thing we had talked about, me and you had actually talked about this prior. There's a pervious and impervious chip seal.
There's a pervious and an impervious pavement. The chip seal is
What's it
is a surface treatment. You can do a single chip seal or a double chip seal, but all chip seal is classified as semi-impervious.
Okay, because there was one that was in Jacksonville, and they consider it impervious, like the one they did at Holt's over here, that the water runs through it.
That's pervious.
Pervious, that's what I mean.
So when you look at this
It's-
table here related to chip seal, I just want the the commission to focus on the fact that $16 a linear foot, that's just straight chip seal cost. The contractor will do nothing else. He's not gonna grade anything, he's not gonna cut limbs back, he's not gonna edge the surface of the road. So when you look at that, that's straight him putting a double chip seal coat on there. That's about $85,000 a mile. Your $375 per linear foot, $375 per linear foot, or $2 million a mile, is an average of paving cost. And that is straight out of our impact fee study. I vetted some of that numbers out with some of our projects. Now, we try to give you that as a weighted average or a milestone. You can have a mile of road here that has certain conditions that you could pave for $200 and something a linear foot. You could have a mile of road that was in another location that had some unique characteristics. It may be $500. Your cost to get land rights, to do stormwater and all that is above and beyond that actual full-blown $375 per linear foot. As said before, chip seal is a non-structural surface treatment. Paving is a structural treatment of the road. You get a 10-year life cycle if you do not have heavy truck traffic on chip seal. You get a 30-year life cycle on pavement. You can extend that out if you resurface in time. There was a question asked here recently of me about why I reclaim certain roads instead of resurface, because they did quite a bit of resurfacing here in the past. The key to resurfacing a paved road is to catch it before the asphalt actually starts coming up. The best example I could provide is think about it like your subfloor at your house. If you don't tile over it, you want to ensure that you've got good base. If you're putting tile or any covering down over a weak base, it's going to cause whatever you put for the cover to fail. If you put 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches of new asphalt over asphalt that's already coming up, it will fail. That's when you have to mill, resurface, or reclaim and mix the road, and you're basically starting over with a new driving surface. Your traffic capacity on chip seal is lower. It cannot stand heavy truck traffic. If it doesn't have the heavy truck traffic, it's got a better lifespan. Naturally, the paving can stand the heavier truck traffic or agricultural. We just spoke about the land rights requirement, whether or not you want to file a maintenance map on those that we don't have land rights, or you just want to pave based on your prescriptive rights. But I will say this, whether you do it now or a future commission, if you are going to ever pave that road, eventually someone will sit here and have to make the decision to get land rights on that road for you to pave it or improve it. And then, once again, the stormwater requirement, where there's minimal improvement under the dusty road exemption, or you fully design and permit stormwater.
Commissioner Farnsworth.
So you say that paved roads have a lifespan of 30 years?
At least 30 years based on.
At least 30 years, okay, because I know there's some roads that are probably 50 years old here in Newberry. So,
Yes, sir, that is a fact. That is a fact.
I mean, are you comparing, chip seal roads, they have a higher rate of failure, I would think, over a shorter period of time.
I agree with that, and I think the commission has heard me say numerous times over the last few years that I do not believe that you should chip seal a road that is subject to heavy truck traffic or commercial traffic or agricultural, watermelon buses, watermelon trucks, things of that nature. You take a local street right up here by MLK, where you have an occasional school bus trip down it, or occasional garbage truck trip, or one of our bucket trucks, chip seal will last a long time in that. To the mayor's point, if you've got good base, you have the potential of getting the full 10 years out of chip seal, maybe even a little further. We have some documentation from the contractor, the pricing we have is from a gentleman who's got contracts with multiple county and municipal government agencies in Florida. He identified in his quote to me, it's all dependent upon the base, and it's all dependent upon the amount of traffic and the weight of the traffic.
And on 30th, is that property, can that be taken by eminent domain, or?
Yes, sir. If you recall, when we brought it to the commission before, and when we did the public workshops next door, there was only a few ways that property can be conveyed to a governmental entity. One is to go through the taking process of eminent domain, which is more expensive than the process we just identified. The process we just identified is a voluntary process.
Which doesn't seem to be coming forth.
Well, we had quite a few people that said that if they conveyed property, they wanted to be compensated. We asked the question at the same time, did they want the road improved? We also said, if you do not want the road improved, would you still be willing to convey property? Most were willing to convey it if they were compensated. There was a good bit of folks that did not want the road improved because they thought there would be more traffic. We did identify to all of those citizens that eventually that is slated to be a collector road, and the additional traffic is going to occur at some point in time.
Jane, is there a law that says that road has to be on the section line?
There is a section of your city code, and you have the ability to change your city code. It's in your subdivision regulations. It's actually one of the segments of your land development regulations that staff is bringing forward recommendations to the commission to consider changing.
So it's law?
City ordinance, not state law.
So not law, just,
City.
because the reason I say that, if we did 30th, and I've wrote this out because I live there, as you know, we've had many discussions, what do we do on the east end when it hits the county? But if you move it over 40 feet now, you're going to be over there in that double wide yard, so you're going to have to swing a curve.
If you go to the east end where the pavement already exists, east of 202,
Yeah.
if you'll notice, the county's already got the 80-foot. They acquired the
They
land
did.
rights to that
But
section.
our road, if you move it 40, ain't going to line up.
But I think one of the most productive things that could come from this workshop is giving staff direction to go give the commission the power to work on that ordinance. Because
Sure,
it
but-
is a law, it's
We-
just our law. That makes a whole lot of difference.
I know.
We can change that.
What I'm saying too, and Jamie knows this, we've discussed this, but it's out in the public tonight, that why would we spend any amount of money if everybody give the land rights to put a beautiful $4 or $5 million road through there when the county's got a $10 road on the other end? The road on the other end is worse than Newberry's Lime Rock Road.
Yeah.
And that is a fact, bar none. So
I just can't
think
do
this
anything
has
about
to
the
be this has to be some sort of negotiation between us, the county, whether we chip seal it for 10 years, as the county, is it in their capital improvement to pick that road up? If we're gonna make it a collector, are they gonna do the same, or I mean, why would we make this beautiful place and then go into a $5?
Well, I think you just put a sign up that says now you're entering into Alachua County Road.
Well, I really don't do nothing, I'll be honest with you.
I believe, and the
But
county.
chip sealing it gives us room. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Mayor, we've had this conversation with the county, and it didn't go anywhere, but I still believe that it will bear fruit. The county dumped a bunch of roads on Newberry and all the other small cities back pre-1995 when state law permitted them to do it. State law has changed that says the county, if you want that road, you got to find a willing taker. So I think that gives Newberry posture. It may take some time, but for Newberry to say, hey, county, we are willing to take this thing off your hands in perpetuity, forever. But you have got to contribute to the initial improvement to get it there, which is by and large from the federal to the state level and from state to county. That's how it works. And the county knows that. The county doesn't take roads from the state that are in crappy condition, but the county is willing to give cities roads in crappy conditions, and I think primarily because they think cities don't know better. As soon as Jamie started pushing back with, well, here's what the law says, the county did not pursue that any further about, we're just gonna give them to you and you can't stop us.
I'm not disagreeing with one word you said, but what I would caution you, the in line of that train of thought is exactly the situation we're in now. There's hardly a road in Newberry that the county or the state doesn't play into. So if we're gonna say, well, we'll improve a road only if the county or the state improves their portion in that road, then nothing happens. Nothing happens, right? So at this point, I just want to work on the things that we can work on.
If we did it in perpetuity, so this would be a Jamie or Mike question. If you did it in perpetuity and we started today, how long would it take before we ran up the billboard, back down the billboard, that we got an answer? Do you think that if they paved it, how long would it take them to pave it and get it to us?
13 years.
Okay, so let's chip seal it for 10, and in 3 years while we're patching it, we'll get a road.
Hey, can we go back to,
That makes sense.
can we go, well, I mean, it may, but I want to go back to the conversation of our own ordinance, which is in y'all's power to change.
Yep.
Because our paving 30th hit a stone wall with the property rights acquisition.
Yep.
If we get back to, we can move to where the existing road is and we can get the easements there, the whole conversation changes again. So I understand everything Commissioner Clark is saying. And I'm not opposed to chip seal if we can find that balance. I do think 30th is going to be a 15th. It's going to be a high traffic road, right? And I do think, and I'd like to hear Jamie speak to it, because I think when I look at 15th and I think, what would it be to fix that road now? I think it would cost more now to fix it than if they had just paved it to begin with. Now they're gonna have to rip everything out and go back. And so if we can chip seal it and that become a base of pavement in 10 years, and we can go and pave it in 10 years from now, well, then I think chip seal's on the table. If we chip seal it and we gotta rip that whole daggum thing back out in 10 years from now and then go back into pavement, I say, well, hang on. Is that really the best thing to do? So is chip seal a level of pavement underneath? Or do we gotta rip it all out?
What the contractor recommended, and if you did chip seal 30th, I would recommend on 30th, you mix the chip seal in with the lime rock. On 15th, unfortunately, that's, even if you mix it, because you've gotta elevate the road and send the water somewhere. So at the end of the day, if the commission directs us to chip seal 30th and down the road you wanted to pave it, one, you'd have to have the land rights. Two, you'd have to have somewhere to address the stormwater when you paved it. Three, you would need to mix the chip seal into it would become part of the base. It wouldn't become a layer of paving. So what Dallas has is we've taken our class 1 roadway unpaved list. We put it into a spreadsheet where he can plug and play things in. With that, we can probably simplify and shorten the conversation on roadways. I looked at them today, and I spoke with Dallas and Mike. The only 3 unpaved roads that I wouldn't recommend as staff to chip seal would be 30th, Holder Grade, and Watermelon Pond. That being said, it's like I told Commissioner Clark when he spoke to me the other day, you pay us for our professional opinion, there's nothing that obligates you to take it. If you want to chip seal 30th, we'll make that happen.
Wait, I'm sorry, Jamie, are you saying staff recommends chip sealing 30th Watermelon Grade?
No,
Or you're
sir.
saying we wouldn't
I'm
recommend?
saying every single road that's on the unpaved list, with the exception of 30th, Watermelon Pond, and Holder Grade, are good candidates
Okay.
for chip seal, using the dusty road exemption where you can. If you have land rights, you don't have to worry about it. The only 3 that as staff we wouldn't recommend would be Watermelon Pond, Southwest 30th, and Holder Grade. But if the commission directs us to do that, that's what we'll do.
Commissioner Martin?
And is it, your recommendation, is that primarily based on the farming and watermelon traffic that's going to be on those roads?
100%, not counting the increased vehicle traffic that's going to occur when you put the chip seal there.
Well, and let me be the devil's advocate. we could play the game, we could do the study. When the county did 202, 202 collects probably, just say 50% of Fry Farms, the rest go down 30th. And the Hodges have watermelon trucks that are 100% on 202, either way. So if we wanted to wait and kick the can down the road, we can look at it and see when it fails. But right now, seriously, it holds up well.
With the exception of the bottom, Mr. Mayor, how many years has it been? I think we're at 3.5, 4 maybe now,
For what?
for when it was chip sealed.
202. 4 years sounds about
4
right.
or 5.
So basically, if you look at 202, your water comes from the south to the north, your north to the south, there's one low place. If you can drive there today, it's failing where the water's at. So you get the water off the road, you're fine. Wherever you can't get the water off the road and it ponds, it's gonna find a place and make a hole.
All right, let's get back to Ricky's topic of conversation. So let's say right now we take staff's recommendation on all of these roads. Where's Dallas? He's up there. All these roads that are good candidates for chip sealing. How much does it cost to chip seal all of the non-disputable good candidates for chip seal? I can't see that font, so you have to read it out to me. Hang on, let me turn around. Okay, now, is that $500,000, or you're changing things?
Looks like it's changing by the moment.
Let it drop. Don't go over.
768,000.
Where did that, oh, I see it over there. Okay, 768, and how many miles of road do we get chip sealed for $768,000? Shouldn't we just have?
5,280.
So,
Nine,
It's 85.
should be like 9 miles.
85 for.
that's all of it. Is that what y'all asked for?
I'm just asking, it's 6 miles?
There's 9 miles of unpaved road.
No, these are all the good candidates. Watermelon Pond's not in there. 30th not in there. I mean, so 768,000, we don't need to go to a ballot for $768,000. We need to go to a ballot if it's 20 million, right?
All of your money, Mr. Mayor, is in those
Is it-
3 roads.
Is it
That's your-
where is Southwest 46? Because Southwest 46 was a $7 million road.
So this is just your unpaved roads.
Okay, we got another
46 is-
presentation on the paved roads in a minute.
No, sir, we
No,
do
not
not.
tonight?
We brought the unpaved roads to make the decision on the chip seal. So on our roadway classification, if it's paved now, remember, we have a classification of 1, 2, and 3, with 3 being the best, 2 being in good shape but needing some improvement, Class 1 being substandard. All of our unpaved roads are your Class 1s. 46 was your largest Class 2 paved road.
Okay, and the 85 is the constructing, it's not the land rights and
Correct.
everything else. That's why it's less.
The land
than-
rights are 25%, the construction inspection is 10%, the design is 10%.
That's
85 plus some markups.
That's assuming you're just doing the chip sealing, you've got land rights, or you don't go prescriptive, and you don't have to do any stormwater.
You had the unpaved roads here in the middle of town. Are you envisioning chip sealing those in this?
Yes, sir.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Mr. Mayor,
Urban downtown.
hang on. Go ahead. So, I'm against chip sealing these back here, at least every one of them. My number one, if we get a grant, that can put the pavement on the ground. And I know that, and we've been in this pavement thing, we call all these people around, they break it off in us every time. And every time we get involved, I call somebody, they call Jamie, or we call somebody around here. But there's a gentleman local, he paved 1/4 mile of my driveway, and for $40,000, and he'll do the same back here. What they don't want to do is deal with the city of Newberry on the red tape, the DOT, and I've said anything to do with that. And it seems to be, every time we ask somebody, they say, Mark, we'll do it, but I'm not coming into the city of Newberry and dealing with the red tape in your city. I went, well, hey, man, that's why I called you that one time with that guy. And so he can't do DOT, he don't want to do DOT. I think he'd be a prime candidate to do stuff right back here. Just because this back here don't require DOT, this is just,
We don't put FDOT standards on local roads
well,
like
I'm
that.
just,
We do put FDOT.
he don't want to be dealing with signs and the stuff back in these main arteries that touch state roads. But I'm saying, he's a great candidate. for these guys back here, and he could adhere to the city standards, put signs up, get a traffic guard, or whatever we need to do. But I just know there's a better way and money savings that we can do.
We do require FDOT standards on a road like Southwest 46th
Oh,
Avenue.
yeah, these are our little,
But to your point, after me and you spoke, and I contacted him, we had a little patch shop. And, in fact, we had quite a few little patch shops. And he was just busy enough that he didn't have time to mobilize in for the amount of work we had. So we did attempt to run. Yes, sir.
I mean, my objection to chip sealing is it's in our urban core. I think the growth is gonna happen. I mean, if this could be a chip seal where it's done, where it's a layer of pavement later on, then I think that, we should think about it. But chip seal to me seems like a rural road application. It doesn't seem like a downtown application, but you guys can have a different tact. I mean, it's certainly a lot cheaper, but we do have a $700,000 grant application that's gonna take care of most of it.
well, that'd be sweet.
Mayor,
Yeah.
we are rural, even downtown, and right now, it's just dirt.
Yeah.
At least we're improving it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just worry about that trip count in downtown.
But these are neighborhood roads
That need sidewalks.
that,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
let's don't keep going here.
any road in a local downtown area that would be a candidate for chip seal that doesn't have adequate lime rock base, we would put an adequate lime rock base before we chip sealed it. That's part of what we do through the annual budgeting process for that. But at the commission's behest, we've just concentrated most of that lime rock annually on Watermelon Pond, Holder Grade, Southwest 30th East, Southwest 30th West, and Southwest 46th West. But we have just about, they're on Watermelon Pond this week, we have just about gone as far as we can go on the majority of those roads. And the majority of those roads have as good a lime rock base as you'll ever get.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yeah, the thing of it is, it's better than where it's at right now. And you're not gonna have watermelon trucks back here. You're not gonna have farm equipment constantly back here.
Maybe.
I'm all for it here in the town, so.
Other commissioner thoughts?
The way Jamie explained it too, here's what, and I'm not against it. It would be better. What I'm saying is 300 feet, 400 feet, 700 feet, just pave it. Especially if we get this grant money.
Right.
I mean, how long before we know about the grant money?
Should be the spring.
Spring?
Should be the spring.
I mean, the focus of tonight was if we want to do everything right,
Yeah.
how much is it gonna be? Chip sealing in your urban downtown, I don't think is right. If we're paying for this as we go, I'm back onto your page, right? But, I mean, $700,000? We changed it to 18 million. Yeah, but he changed it to 18 million now, so I don't know.
That's if you want to pave all those roads to go to state.
Now, I'm not talking about all the roads, I'm talking about the three little ones back here. Is it $18 million to pave these three little ones back here?
That's 46
Right,
and.
that's, right. So,
What area is that?
Area 1 would be Northwest 5th Avenue, Northwest 4th Avenue, and Northwest 255th Street from 3rd Avenue to 6th Avenue.
I mean, the way I thought this conversation was go, it was, here's what it costs to do everything right, and then you guys were gonna start picking off and saying, well, we're not gonna spend $18 million, so these are the words we're gonna focus on. I mean, chip sealing everything, if we can use dusty roads and we can make good decisions and we can get the base right, and we can do all that for sub 1 million, that, I think, by the time it takes us to boot it out, we doled out over the next 3 to 5 years, and we can absorb that. It's $20 million to do, 46. That's why we're here tonight to talk about the
That's
ballot.
right, because when you said 768,000, there's no need to put a vote to the.
Right.
But, if we're gonna pave everything, let's do it all. Let's get it done.
I will say, Mr. Mayor, it's easier to chip seal under the dusty road exemption than it is to pave under the Dusty Road exemption.
Is the Dusty Road exemption available to pave? I thought it was just a chip seal exemption.
Let me go back and go back to, click those off for just a second, Dallas. Not realign the road or expand the number of traffic lanes of the existing road, but may include safety shoulders, clearing, vegetation, other work reasonably necessary to repair, stabilize, pave, or repave the road, provided the work is constructed using generally accepted roadway standards.
Okay.
So it is an option with some caveats. Okay, I want to try to, is your presentation done, Jamie? Let's try to bring this towards
We're here for
a,
direction.
What's the total of everything
Well,
being paid?
Dallas put it up as 18 million if we pave everything. But that's just the unimproved road is 18 million. That doesn't include 46,
No, sir.
30th,
No, sir. This is,
Watermelon, or Holder Grade. So if you add everything, what's the total, Dallas? If you paved everything,
so you put Northwest 32nd back in there, you put Southwest 250th back in there. Everything that wasn't,
58 million. All right, let's start scaling back now.
Oh, yeah. See,
Yeah,
you got probably the most conservative
right.
die sitting up here. There's no way we got, see, even putting that to a vote and
But remember,
they all
guys,
voted for it, you're like, really, you wanna pay for it?
this started because 46 was $7 million all by itself, and we couldn't do that without
Right.
over 1 mil. And so we wanted to have a conversation with the community about how much do you want certain roads. 58. 58
and to
million.
expand on that, if you would allow me, Mr. Mayor, that was part of that conversation with 46. The way I understood the commission's direction, they wanted us to go back and look at the substandard roads, so we brought the substandard roads.
Right. I'm all in favor of, to me, the chip seal has always been about the number of trips, right? So all the roads that we can chip seal, I think is a great, and I think the people that live on those roads, besides for a resident down on Holder Grade, they would appreciate the chip seal, right? Very few people, they go out and they look at the house, they drive down that dirt road to look at the house, they buy the house, they love living in the country, and then we go through a drought and it kicks up all that dust and when are you gonna pave the road, right? And I remember living on 266 and my whole life that was a dirt road. And then it got chip sealed and I had mixed reactions. One, I enjoyed the no dust, but also people went from driving 20 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour down that road. And that, I found that a little bit irritating, right? Yeah. So there's a little mixture there. So I think what we've got to give staff some direction of what's the direction that we want to go here. We tabled 46 while we had this conversation about different ways to go about road maintenance. Now we've heard two ideas. You have a assessment that everyone pays, but you can only do the roads that everyone has a good chance of driving down. 46 is on that list because it is a collector road. Chip seal roads are probably not eligible for that because not everybody, that's the whole point of why you can chip seal is because not everybody's driving. But we're under $1 million. We can give direction to staff. Hey, by 2030, we want every road all these roads chip sealed. And you stand a pretty good chance of being able to get it done and paid for without having to go to great extremes.
So, Mr. Mayor, if you would, the inset on this picture right here is the roads that I say would potentially be good candidates for chip seal and the Dusty Road exemption in the core downtown. If you'll notice, there's two roads there that is due north of Newberry Lane. They're dead-end short segments. You've got a segment here just north of the railroad right-of-way. You've got the segment we spoke about there adjacent to Martin Luther King on 255th, on 4th, on 5th Avenue. You've got a short section on Northwest 1st Avenue. That segment is actually shorter now. That segment that you see that's right up against the city yard, that road segment goes away as part of the twin pairs, so that's been cut in half. The little segment that you see down there under the farmhouse 1906 title, that's actually the little segment that we own that's south of the barber shop. Now, we don't own all of that all the way to State Road 26. We don't naturally have land rights. There could be a prescriptive claim made on that to 26, and some of that approach will be addressed as part of the Twin Parish project. But these road segments here is the ones I'm saying that in the core part of downtown, they're low-traffic roads, don't have heavy truck traffic on it. You could potentially chip seal them, do minimal stormwater, if any, because I believe every one of those would qualify for the dusty road exemption. Before you put chip seal on it, I would ensure that you had adequate lime rock base.
Jamie, what do you need? It's a workshop. We're not taking a vote tonight, but I feel the frustration when we don't give clear direction to staff. Staff doesn't know what we're wanting to do, and that conversation goes on. So it seems like there are some phases here. Before we would chip seal it, we'd want to beef up the lime rock. Did we ever get our dump truck? Did we get the dump truck?
Latest lie is it'll be here in the next month. But that is the latest lie. Most of those segments have adequate lime rock on them now.
Okay.
The only area that I would be nervous about the lime rock, right there where I said Northwest 255th and 4th came together and the intersection need to be reconfigured, there need to be a little lime rock there. And there's a segment on 255th, that same road, just south of the railroad that would potentially need some additional lime rock. The segment on 5th Avenue and from 4th Avenue north to MLK has adequate lime rock base right now. That's the only areas that I'm aware of that you have some failure on base.
Commissioner Clark.
Jamie, on these roads right here, and I ride a lot of them back there too, or been by. Are any of these the little offshoot roads that don't have a city sign on them that go around, are they all, every one of these are a thoroughfare? Like I see one here that may be a main
That's
drag.
Northwest
This right here
255th.
by the railroad track.
That's a little section by the railroad track.
Does it have is this a city?
It connects. We maintained it historically. It's debatable as to whether we got land rights.
It's basically, are the driveways on the front of that or the back of that is what I'm.
You've got driveways on the
Both
railroad
sides?
sides and the other side. That segment you
So you
pointed
could
out, and the little
Chip
ones,
seal that one.
the one south of the railroad, the little short one right below that,
Then you
that's
pay-
on the railroad right away as well.
Okay, well, my point for me is, as I've ridden back there and some of my friends, some of those roads are like little cut-through paths that have been there forever.
And
We
in
could
some,
chip seal them, and the ones that line up with a city street with a green sign or something, we pave.
Let me take a whack at something that would be direction, see if we can get moving. So I think 5 years is a pretty good time frame, right? I would say let's ask staff to come back in this next budget cycle with a plan to spread this out over a 5-year period of time that it takes into account that we may get a grant for these roads over here, that we may have some other things. So we strategically, some of these roads have the base, they're ready to go. Some of these roads need to build the base, right? Kind of lays that out to the commission with the price tag and let you guys vote on it during budget season. But that would give our staff the time. We don't start budget till springtime. They could come back and say, all right, we had this presentation. We can do X amount of roads for this much each year, right? And we'll start on these roads and this is why, right? Or you guys could say, we want to focus on paving the roads, the paved roads of 46, and we want to put these on the back burner, right? But somehow, some way, we got to tell them what to work on so that when something doesn't happen, we can say, well, we had all these workshops, but you guys we can't get 3 of you to nod your head in one direction. Commissioner Martin?
Jamie, are there any economies of scale with not dragging this out and just finding a contractor that can do it all essentially at one time?
on the,
And I'd also add, those two in the northwest off of Newberry Lane, I mean, to me, they just seem like driveways. So they're not exactly on the top of my radar, nor is that little piece that looks like it's in the railroad right away. But the rest of it, I mean, can we bid that out with some, I guess, guardrails?
So with the chip seal pricing, that state contract, he has a minimum to move in.
Okay.
He's got to have at least $30,000 worth of work to mobilize.
Okay.
The more work you give him, the lower the mobilization cost.
Okay. Well, can you speak to Commissioner Clark's comment about whether or not can we get somebody in here, a smaller guy that can do some of this stuff less expensively, like, his driveway we're talking about?
Well, as I stated before,
I mean,
we've attempted to use that same gentleman and several others of that same size
Right,
on parking lot jobs and small
Right.
patch jobs.
right,
We actively went to every one of them on Fourth Avenue, the turn lane project. We thought that was a little large for them and a little more complex. I actually contacted one that does a lot of small work for DOT. And he said, your process is greatly reduced from what I have to do with DOT. Would love to do work with you. He's doing work in Gilchrist, Levy, and Dixie County. We contacted him 3 times to try to get him to bid on the Fourth Avenue job and on some of our patch jobs. And he's just got more work than he can do.
this is a little bit bigger project that, maybe they would change their priorities a little bit.
For paving, you would probably get a better response the more you lump together. With chip
Okay.
sealing, I would recommend going with the contractor that you can piggyback. He's doing work for Alachua County now, he's doing work for Gilchrist County now, he's doing work in Polk, he's doing work in Walton.
I mean, I love the way if there's a way that we could just bid it out as one package, though, in my mind, best case scenario, this is all happening in about a 5-year period of time, though.
5 years seems ridiculous in time frame for me, really, because
Yeah.
you're talking $250,000 a year for 5 years. That just, it just seems like we can, and nobody's gonna want to do that and take 5 years to do it, I wouldn't think. Another thought bubble I had was whether or not there's some advantageous nature to try to pave the more thoroughfare-oriented roads versus the little segments in between that maybe we could just chip seal.
See, I saw hands for Coleman and Clark. Anybody? Commissioner Coleman? No? Yes?
No, I'm with that, I'm fine chip sealing or,
I mean, if
that's where I'm at. But my main concern is feeder roads out of Newberry, dropping off their kids at the middle school and the elementary school and trying to get to North Florida Regional Hospital. That's where I'm at going to work. And so these 30th, because nobody's gonna go 15. So where I'm at is, our best feeder road is 30th Avenue. 46, yeah, if you wanna go on down and cut back up, whatever it is, but 30th is our closest feeder road out of here. And that's where I'm at right now. If we chip and seal it for 10 years and then, come back and then pave it because it's a good base. But my main concern is 30th Avenue,
This is-
getting people out here.
Mr. Mayor, versus trying to have the touchdown conversation right now, can we just focus on this and get the first down?
And I agree. Like,
No, that's
I
not
understand
I was
what
here for.
what Commissioner
I was here
Coleman,
for feeder road.
he wants the big ticket roads. Commissioner Clark, what were you?
I was going to say that I'm all in with Commissioner Martin, exactly what I was saying earlier. Let's get these paved. I don't feel like this is, I believe if we made some phone calls, this thing can be done. We can start a bid process, get a bid, and I reckon we just come back to see where the money's at, and if there is no money from impact fees or whatever else we got, we'll do it on the next budget. This is nothing. This is
Well,
nothing for these guys.
that was part of the 5-year. If you do it over some span
Well,
of years, you
I
kind of break up the funding.
It may take 5 years for all of them, Mr. Mayor, but this shouldn't be but for me personally, I'd have it done in 6 months, but we gotta go through the red tape and the government and the bids and all the stuff that we have to do. So it does take time for staff to get this thing together. How long would it take, Jamie, would you think? A year?
We could put on paving or chip sealing?
Paving this part?
Well, you had a mixture, right?
No,
You were
I do. I
okay
have
with
a
some.
mixture, so I'm asking a question, is like this one.
So with putting some bid documents together, some surveying to ensure that we got land rights or determining we're not going to procure land rights, you're looking at least 12 months to get
Okay,
it out
so
to bid.
So we don't even know if we got land rights on the roads that been here 150 years.
We're assuming so.
Yeah. So for me personally, 46 needs to be paved. I would chip seal 30th, I would re-chip seal 15th, going east, and I would pave these city streets. That would be where me would want the projects.
All right, Commissioner Farnsworth, you've been quiet over there. Where? I mean, I like everything that everyone's saying, but
That was just my big thing.
Except chip sealing these.
I don't like chip sealing
No,
downtown,
that's,
but
Yeah.
do what you gotta do.
I'm not really in favor of chip sealing anything, but I would like to really see what the staff can come up with and give us something very definitive. So that before I even try to make a decision, I don't want to know what the cost is going to be, where that money's going to come from, and the time frame it's going to take to do it. before-
Dallas, do you have a microphone back there? No? Can you come up here?
They need direction from us
The cost is
to
already there.
collect the information.
So my question to you, Dallas, is, because if it's possible, let's just say we could wave a magic wand, we could bid out all these roads within a year, and I agree, if you did them all out and they brought in a lot, you could probably get them done in another year once you were there. Does the commission have a funding source for $1 million in the next 2 years to, even if we're just chip sealing all of these? Can we use impact fee money to chip seal? Because these are existing roads, we're not expanding the roads, widening the roads,
You're not increasing the capacity.
increasing the
of
capacity of the road. So we have to come up with our own, a different funding source for that $1 million.
You could issue
Always
debt.
take a
You could issue-
loan,
Yeah,
right?
so you could issue a 5 or 10-year debt on the project. You do have your new local option gas tax that is committed to capital expenditures in the road system. We've been using that money to do the little tiny bits of road throughout the city, so you could bond that money.
And the downtown roads also qualify for some CRA funding,
If there's CRA funding available, yes, they qualify for
if
CRA
there's
funding.
CRA funding available.
I mean, I can see taking debt for a paved road that's gonna last 30 years, taking
much?
debt for a chip seal road.
Now,
The
you know,
cost
to-
is
How much is the
minimal,
millage,
Mr. Mayor.
on the millage rate? What is that?
For paving or for chip sealing?
For chip seal.
For,
Okay, give me 1 second.
1 mil is how much?
1 mil should be about $800,000.
So you're going up $1 million to pay.
If you pay it,
Okay.
if it's a 5-year note, though, you get the, if he takes out debt service that we repay over 5 years, you know, it'd be 250,000 or 200,000. It would be manageable in the budget if we
Right.
could cap it around $1 million.
Need a 10-year loan.
.11 mils
That's to take out debt to chip seal, correct?
that you're gonna pay off on 10 years, in 10 years.
I can run it up.
Put it on 5 years. 'Cause at least you're getting twice the life of the road for the loan.
But 1 mil is 800,000 a year? Well, that wouldn't take long to repay that.
I mean, if you up the millage by 1, you pay it off as you go, right? You pay it that year.
Because it's about $200 a person.
Jamie, while Dallas is working on that, do we have another presentation, another workshop different night where we're gonna talk about the cost of paving 30th and those kinds of things? And, cause that's where we get into the need of putting it on a ballot and saying, yeah, to pave those 3 roads is gonna be $18 million, and that's it. Is that another presentation?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor, when we brought the 46th Avenue price in, and the commission directed us to go back and look at the substandard class 1, that's what we did, including 30th Avenue, the unpaved section. And we were bringing it back to identify a number, because at the time, we thought the direction was to look at general obligation bonds. So we do not have a presentation on resurfacing or reclaiming any existing paved road.
But the long and short, and Dallas, when you're done with that, I want you to put those 3 roads and how much it costs to pave them, because that's what Commissioner Coleman, that's the one piece of data that he wants. What's the total and what we'll be putting on to the ballot? But I think even on that ballot, you've got to, let's finish up the 5-year loan. So the 5-year loan is 0.2, and that's a annual payment of $172, right? I mean, I think we can figure out how to make that work too, right? So let's finish up this conversation, then I'll go back to the 3 roads. It's gonna be Watermelon Pond, 46, and Holder Grave, right? Okay, is there any interest in this dais of moving forward with paving these, whether it's all at one time, whether it's over some span of years? We wanna give staff direction that we wanna chip seal these roads, mixture with some pavement,
Can we have
maybe
another-
cut some out, right?
What? Do we have another water tower we can sell the air rights to or something for Verizon? God damn.
So on 46, Mr. Mayor.
No, in my head that
Hang
was,
on.
in my head that was a joke, but
Yeah.
it actually begs the question, what are we doing with the new water tower?
Yeah, don't get us off of this conversation right now.
Getting on to me.
Yeah.
about getting
No,
off track.
are we potentially selling the?
Let's make the
real
direction
estate
be
on
look
it?
for other revenue sources, but do I have a head nod that we want staff to come back in this budget cycle with 2 plans? One is all at once, one is spread out, one is taking debt, one is paying as we go for these chip sealed roads. And right now they're, well, and I think you guys have heard, you'll go back and review, because each commissioner has kind of expressed a list for which ones need to be chip sealed, which ones need to be paved, which ones need to be ignored.
So for
So,
clarity on that, Mr. Mayor, based on what I heard, you were looking for the more through roads. There's only one road that fits that classification in that list, and that's Northwest 255th from 3rd Avenue to 6th Avenue. All the rest of those are not through, they're just connections. So
but
is that,
I think where we need to start with is let's just chip seal all of them, and then you'll say, but if you want these one back here, we get the $700,000 grant, because by the time we get into budget, we should have be close to that answer, so things can change. But I'm just trying to bring this conversation to something of a resolution, and that would give us the opportunity to then take a vote. Yes, we want to chip seal all of them. We want to chip seal 90%, pave 10. We got this grant, right? And we can move forward at that point. We'll know if it's debt service, if it's pay as we go, and what is estimate of, can we do this in 24 months? Is it gonna take us 48? Those kinds of things. I got 2 heads nodding, and the other 2 are not nodding at all. So we're not taking a motion here, but.
Here, let me call Tony.
Sure.
All right, I heard a sure.
That's
All right,
fine.
so there's 3. That moves us to the next phase. So, Jamie, we want to chip seal the bulk of them, right? These roads back here that we got a grant, we're going to wait till we find out that answer there. And then you'll look at each best guess about whether or not we got enough base or whether we need to build a base, and we'll kind of time that out. And you've got all the way up until budget season to come back with that.
understood, Mr. Mayor.
Or paved, Mr. Mayor, right?
All right, there's some
Or paved
payment
with the
options in
grant.
there, right?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, once we get the data loaded up, it's another column in the
Right.
worksheet. So, once we get the table built, that we can add the one column very quickly and give the commission the options that I think I hear them saying they're looking for.
And the whole staff will look for other revenue sources like water towers, cell towers, bake sales. That's what we do at the school. We do a lot of
Car
bake
washes.
sales, car washes.
I think
Okay, now let's go to Ricky's question. If I'm gonna pave 46, Holder Grade and Watermelon Pond, was that the $18 million? Is that different? Okay. And while he's calculating that, Jamie, refresh, because we had a person come in and talked about, nope,
I need Jamie to do that, because he has different numbers.
And give me one second, one point before I leave. If the commission will recall, we do have 100% plans, specifications, stormwater permits, people
ready to go on 46.
146 and a price tag on that. We stuck that on the shelf. We have not put a bid package together, because it was our understanding that the commission did not feel like that the condition of that road, the amount of trips that currently on that road, that we needed to move forward, resurfacing or reworking that road. We want us to include it in the analysis.
Yes, my memory of that conversation was it was the price tag was a sticker shock, and we wanted to see about other ways to fund it, because we didn't want to raise that millage all through the millage for that one road. So it's,
4-1 vote to not
right, to shelve it.
to show, right?
Right, to shelve it. So, but it wasn't a, we're not doing it all. It was a, we've got these other ways to fund it. We're not gonna do it all out of. It wasn't a, don't kill it. It was a, we need to have more conversation about how we pay for it.
So to take that thought a little bit further, you can use the $375 per linear foot number on 30th if you went full paving. And then you got the additional cost for the land rights, the stormwater. Won't pricing of paving 30th east of 2741, or do you want pricing on chip seal?
This question is paving, it's paving those through roads. How much, we're not saying we are or not, we're just saying, what would it be if we wanted to pave all three of those roads? What would it be? Because the only, in my mind, the only way we're going to this ballot initiative is if it's large enough to warrant putting this out. So if it's chip sealing, I think we can figure out how to pay for that as we go. If we're paving these three major roads, that's how we need, and we needed another funding source just for 46. So we said, if we're gonna do this ballot language, if we're gonna consider it, let's go for all of them, right? And let's do, so I'm just trying, I'm not saying we are or we're not. I'm just trying to get, what is the price if we're gonna do all three of these roads? And we're gonna put it,
I just still, until Mike has a conversation or somebody says that the county's gonna do that in, I think we're just absolutely wasting money.
well,
to put
we'll
a
have
paved
our.
road in to go into something that you don't even wanna drive on. I mean, you can go get your Prius and drive to the end, Mr. Mayor, get out, then take a mule and get down to 241, cause that's what you've been down there.
I mean, we've all
Me and
been
you
in
have
that
run down there. Your
headspace,
car on my road.
and that's why
it's
nothing's
perfect.
happened.
You hit their road, you might as well
Right.
buy another car.
But is Watermelon Pond in this?
It,
So Dallas
it is in his
desperately
calculations.
trying to gather the stuff back on the
It's
spreadsheet
terrible.
for those three roads.
I just drove.
Hopefully we get all the segments back in there, but he's working on that.
How many citizens we got on?
I mean, Watermelon Pond wouldn't be in that list for me, but it's in the list.
No, it
I'm
wouldn't
asking
be
for the
me
price.
either.
I mean, it's collector road. It would be, I'd be in favor of chip sealing Watermelon. I know staff isn't, but that seems like a good road to me to chip seal, because the
They
pond
start
is,
running watermelon trucks on it.
yeah, I mean, that would be the problem. But the pond is half dried up. You don't have a whole lot of traffic going down there anymore. There's not a whole lot of residents down there. And I think that this initiative, in order, if you're gonna sell it, it's gotta be collector roads, right? It's gotta be, these are roads that's gonna get
Out of
flow
here.
off of
Get you
Newberry Road, right?
Mr. Mayor, my only fear on Watermelon Pond is two peanut seasons. If somebody drops peanuts there, one watermelon season, or somebody cuts timber there, you'll kill that chip seal.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Trevor Bass's watermelon trucks run up and down 30th right now. And I will see how much longer the road's holding up all right now, right? But that dead man's curve,
Oh, yeah.
you gotta be careful now, cause there's semi trucks that take that road, you know?
Well, yeah, I'm all in.
hopefully we
Ready to
have
listen.
every segment back in there. Staff will confirm. We believe that's all of them. Dallas has got your number up.
34 million?
That was the number we had the other day.
Yeah,
Last
but
time
No, but 46 was 7 million. And how many miles is 30th?
2.
So that's 4.
2 point,
It's 2 million a
1 or 2,
mile, so that's 4. And how many miles is Watermelon Pond? 6? 5?
Well, you can take that out off the chart right now.
So why is it, what happened to the 2 million a mile? Because we should be at 11, we should be at like 16,
So
17
he's got
million.
Holder, he's got Watermelon, and he's got Southwest 30th.
Right.
Here.
7 million is on 46. If 30th is 2 miles, that'd be 2 million a mile.
11 and 3/4 miles,
Which one is 11?
all together.
Oh, all of them together. Watermelon Pond must be longer than what I thought. Did 46 change from 7 million?
So 46 is in there at 6.3 million. This also includes engineering, design, right away.
For the other two? Yeah.
Look, Mayor, what we're looking at here, is feeder roads out of here that benefit everybody. And don't get me wrong, and I'm probably gonna get stabbed for it, but Watermelon, or Facebook, as they call it, Watermelon Pond Road
Isn't a feeder road.
is not a feeder road out of here. It's just, to me, it's a waste of money.
and neither is Holder.
Well,
It needs to
Holder
be
Grade,
fixed up and maintained, but it don't need to be paved.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, staff has said numerous times, and based on trip counts, that we do not feel that you need to pave or chip seal or make any improvements whatsoever to Holder or Watermelon Pond.
with you, brother. Yep.
Commissioner Farnsworth? That was an aggressive
Do we
reach.
have
so
a
go
trip
for it.
count on 30th?
I have one that's about 3 years old. We've been able to budget money this year for the first time. We're gonna do trip counts on every single road in Newberry on a 5-year cycle, so that any given time I can give you, the planning department, or the development community, what the trip data is, and it'd be less than 5 years old. So
Okay.
I can provide data, but it's about 3 to 4 years old.
But I'd really like to know, I mean, y'all call it a feeder road, but I don't see it really as a feeder road. It's south of of the main city, and there's really, I don't see why somebody would drive down south of the city and then take the 30th.
There's a bunch of people running. There is a
So,
bunch of
yeah, I
commissioners
know what the
And here's
trip count is.
this is it in a nutshell. Am I okay, Mr. Mayor?
You're
All right, the 30th Avenue would be totally used a lot more if it was paved.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Mr. Mayor,
It's not paved currently, so your trip count, I don't wanna go down 30th, cause half the time I'm gonna dusty up my dusty truck as it
And when
is.
you get to the paved part, it's worse than.
Oh, yeah, it's
It's
even
worse
worse.
than the graded part.
So a trip count ain't telling the true tale.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, staff totally agrees with that. I believe that your trip count on 30th, if you improve it, whether you chip seal it or pave it, I think you can add that by a factor of 10 to 15.
Oh, yes.
That's how much higher your trips are gonna go up. That's one of the reasons I'm so resistant to chip sealing, especially if truck traffic is on the increase as well.
All right,
And what
Commissioner
about
Hart?
15th?
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, how, if that was brought up to grade, what would the use of it be? I would think that'd be a lot more than 30.
A lot more, yeah.
Same thing, Mr. Mayor, it's the next section line north. I will remind the commission that both on 30th and on 15th, there's potential developments that's got some obligation to do something with that. I actually had an engineer contact me today about the one on 30th. We're actively working with the developer on a concept for 15th.
Just remember, we don't own 15th. There's section, but we don't
Yeah,
own the
no.
majority of that one. We already paid the chip seal at one time, even though the county owns it. Right? Are you done, Commissioner Farnsworth?
Yep.
Commissioner Martin?
I don't know if maybe this conversation is getting me a little bit more jaded as we go along here, but there's an aspect here of me feeling like this is a problem or a solution looking for a problem. You know, if 30th to me is a collector road or whatever you want to call it, they're currently using 2 state highways, 2741 to 26, that we don't have to pay for, that we don't have to worry about. And they don't cost us any more money to deal with. I understand there's a convenience factor, but I don't know that at this point I have the stomach to socialize that problem onto the rest of the city citizens about it. It just feels like a want versus a need at this point. So I apologize if that pisses you off, but that's kind of where my head is right now. So I don't really have an appetite for the paving of these roads necessarily, because it's going to create more problems, it's going to create more traffic, and that's all like a can of worms I feel like we're opening on ourselves voluntarily, where we don't necessarily have to force ourselves to do that. Sorry.
And I think I would like to hear Jamie's opinion on this, because in my mind, what we've always been trying to do is be better than the governments around us. And I agree with everything Tim just said in this moment in 2024. But I also think that Newberry's growing, and we need to open up, what it is our job is to open up more ways for people to get to work. And I don't know that we need that in December 2024, but I think in 25, 26, sometime soon. And it obviously takes us a long time to make a decision, and then it takes us a long time to bid it out and do it. So if we are 5 years, 10 years away, then we need to have the plan. And for 30th, we're talking about property rights. We're talking about all kinds of things that haven't happened yet.
And I can appreciate that aspect of what you're saying, but I think if we make, there's also a part of me that says if we make it more convenient, we're just exacerbating the growth problems that we could potentially be dealing with not only tomorrow, but in 2 or 3 years from now. So I'm not interested in accelerating that whatsoever. And I appreciate the fact that we want to do it better than those around us. But I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it should be this hard.
Commissioner Coleman?
If the Davises decide that they're going to, you know, I don't know where they're at in the process of
Sandia
building
Park.
that big, what's the name of it?
Sandia Park.
Yeah. Yeah, Sandia Park.
And their developers agreement, they're paving that entire section of 30th, right? They've agreed to that? They've agreed something close to that.
Mr. Mayor, that is in their development order, but we had a conversation with the commission 6 or 8 months ago because they can't get the land rights, and we can't get the land rights, at least voluntarily. And, you know, we haven't authorized some type of effort like what we've showed you, that the commission indicated that if they're unable to get the land rights, they would require them to complete the road to their western boundary line and no more, and just swag it back into the existing roadway. Now, that's not a non-binding vote on the commission. That was a question and feedback that we got, but, you know, Mr. Davis asked so that he could, you know, continue planning on his development, and that was where we were then.
So they're willing. We just got to work on everybody that owns the property there. Okay, just trying to get bring a closure to this and see what do we.
I said what I said on my road, so
If
that's my final.
I mean, I believe that there may be an opportunity to chip seal 30th, right? Depending on how those conversations, what that balance is. I'll ask Commissioner Mazon's question that he ended with the last time we talked about 46. We're ready to go. We spend the money on there. If we're not doing it now, when are we? We're going to kick the can down the road. My response to him in that meeting was, it's real hard to me to justify raising taxes on everybody for one road
Right.
that everybody on the other side probably is never going to traverse. It is a collector road, right?
Well, another thing, I have been approached with, like, so you wanna, that's double taxation is what I've had. So aren't we already paying 1% with the county? And I'm like, yeah, you are, but, you know.
Yeah.
aren't we?
Well, we are paying, we're paying 1 penny on the infrastructure, half a cent goes to that, and half a cent goes to wild spaces, right?
Yeah.
So we're paying a half a cent So, I mean, it's a tough
I know.
sell to say, we need this one road and we need it bad. But I also don't think the cost of paving roads getting any cheaper. So somebody someday is gonna have to answer this question.
Well, and, I mean, to that point, Mr. Mayor, it doubles your capacity to raise revenues. If you do that, 5 years later, you raise twice as much in 5 years as you would have, and you'll be able to show the public that we paved twice as many roads as we would have. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily double counting.
Yeah.
It is doubling up, but you're getting twice as much revenue to do something with. That's very much a political decision. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to weigh in, but it's not just simply double counting the same dollar.
Jamie, how long are our engineering plans that they're good for? It's a road, it's not City Hall, so unless Tallahassee changes something big, that plan good for 5 years?
At least 5 years. If you're gonna go longer than 5 years, you're probably gonna have to take a look at any environmental regulations associated with stormwater that may have.
Because 46 is just outside or just inside the urban service area?
It is.
It's the border, it's the line. So people can develop right up to it, and those would be potential. Sandia Park eventually reaches on 46, so
And if you recall, we factored out any improvements that the developer required to make at his cost.
so our 7 million is already Sandia Park pitching in for whatever section.
His is above and beyond, and he has to pay for it. If they have time the project together, he has to pay for it.
Okay, so any interest in moving forward with the ballot language?
The more I've listened tonight, which has been great, I don't know that, I don't feel like we should, put this for our citizens. I really don't. Now that, I mean, it's tough, but
All right, I got 2 no's
Yeah,
and 2
I'm a no.
silent commissioners. Either of y'all want to move forward with the ballot language? Mark, Bonnie? Okay, 46 is eligible for the assessment because it's a collector road, so that conversation can come back and we can see if there's any interest as a funding source to help pay for it. Other than that, we're gonna sit and wait until we get some developers to
Impact fees
come.
also on that?
You have to expand the road, the capacity of the road.
Exactly, I went round and round.
Well, I had a foot of backlane, or a foot of, thing, so expanding, I mean, we gotta learn how to take the government to a little bit further instead of saying yes.
No, sir.
You want me to help you? Jamie, I can help you bend the rules.
Mr. Mayor, we took a.
Never truer words were spoken. I was just gonna say.
We took a loan.
At a bike lane.
Made sure
Landing
we're
strip.
adding width to it. And my argument was that, just what Commissioner Clark said, and taking the no-through truck signs off, because you have to add capacity to make it impact fee eligible. I hunted that dog for 6 months and never could make him hunt. If you could hunt him better, feel free to.
Well,
I can attest to the tersely worded emails that were coming from this one.
well, the thing of it
well,
is,
who made, I mean, to be honest, who made that call? FDOT, I mean, county or FDOT, or who tells us?
I'm gonna say.
Oh, the traffic engineer?
Commissioner Goldman?
yeah, the
Maybe
thing,
we get another.
I'm afraid that all of us won't be sitting up here 10, 15 years from now, and we're gonna go, man, we should have paid 30th. That's where I'm at right now.
We'll say that about everything.
Okay, so we're gonna table the ballot initiative. We're gonna move forward with the assessment, information. 46 is 30th available if you're improving for the assessment, because it's a collector road as well. Because the assessment, you had to show where it's a collector road. So we have both of the roads that have been the main topic of conversation here are eligible for this different methodology. So we're gonna get more information about that methodology. We're not gonna pursue the ballot language anymore. Staff is going to bring back a couple of plans for the chip sealing of everything, right? You're gonna have one that's over 5 years, you're gonna have one that's all at one time, you're gonna have a strategy for which roads are first and which roads are last and why. And we'll have that by the time we get into the budget season. And will we have information on the road assessment fee by the time we get into budget? Will we be able to say, yes, we can, because that, we already said, we notified that we might be putting that on the ballot, so that is moving forward. He should yes and no at the same time, so he's,
You asked multiple questions. Mr. Mayor, you have notified the county of your intent to adopt a stormwater assessment,
okay,
not to
Not
adopt
the
a
road.
road assessment. We have not engaged a consultant to produce a road assessment, so the next step would be, if the commission wants to pursue that, for us to hire a consultant to develop the road assessment.
okay. Is there any interest?
We got the quote from Stan Tech, who presented to you, is about $25,000 to produce the report.
And I would just offer, based on what I've been hearing, we'll be prepared to have additional numbers for consideration as we go through the budget process this year. And we will include in our proposed funding for fiscal year '26, funding for road assessment analysis. And the commission may not have an appetite for it, and that's fine, but we will solicit the price. We'll know exactly what we ought to plug in, and we'll propose it for next year's budget.
Well, I know the commission has already spoken 4-1 that there's no appetite for paving these roads strictly out of millage. So there has to be some other revenue source. It's not all gonna happen out of the infrastructure tax. And if the commission doesn't, and we're just gonna sit on our hands and not do the issue, then I think we just need to tell that to staff, so we'll stop spending staff time running them around. We just need to speak to them, and that's difficult because we range the thought up here of, yes, we need to pave it and do it right now, don't kick the can, to, I don't wanna socialize anything, so just let the problem sit, right? And that's a pretty wide gap for the commission to be at. We gotta either all agree with Tim, or we all gotta agree with Tony, or we gotta find a balance in between so that we can tell these guys what to do. So do you want them to, we're not taking a motion tonight, but do you want them to go and get the quote and bring that back to you for the assessment? Commissioner Clark?
All right, for me, one more time. What's it gonna cost? Even if we get a grant, we know it's coming, to pave or chip seal those roads in the back.
You're not getting,
46th Avenue pavement, 30th chip seal, and 15th, some sort of agreement to fix it. It is one of the worst, even though it's a county road. We all understand it. It is one of the worst. I get more calls on that road than anything in the city, and I tell them the same thing. I can't do nothing about it. Just like 337.
and what I just asked outlines a funding source for your
A
first
funding
question.
source.
Where does it pay for?
The way we go.
There we go.
That's my
All
take.
right.
Other than that, all I want to do is hear.
So I need two there.
On that one.
Okay, so you've got
Just here.
direction to
Ain't no
bring us
group
back, because we got a whole other conversation to have
That's
tonight, so. Good? Okay. Jamie, you're, gonna jump into, I'm listening, but I am gonna step out for 30 seconds.
Understood, Mr. Mayor. So if the commission recalls, we had a meeting with the development community about 2.5 weeks ago. This is an overview of that presentation with some updated information. The commission asked us to consider an option 4. After discussion with the development community, we believe that actually falls under option 3, and I'll try to shake that out if that's possible. So we went through all the funding requirements associated with wastewater plant expansion.
And would you let me do one thing?
Yes,
Let me give this grandbaby a hug because it's his birthday.
I understand. I would do the same thing.
Come here, little buddy. There he is.
Sorry, y'all.
No worries. I love you.
Happy birthday.
All right, thank y'all.
No problem. I had to take mine to get him some new boots because he wouldn't fit in his old. So you got to have your priorities in life. So as part of that presentation, the consultants and city staff identified that we don't have residual capacity and spoke to some reservation payment options and a timeline for the wastewater treatment facility and making capacity available. Went through how we got to where we're at and the existing deficiencies. Originally, if the commission recalls, we needed to expand because we were anticipating future growth, and we wanted to go to advanced treatment because that's where we thought the regulations were going. Well, in the meanwhile, now we are mandated to go to advanced because we're in the Santa Fe BMAP and have a time frame that we have to do so. So basically, between the money that we've been able to secure from the state revolving fund and grants and the money that is secured by agreement from Archer, we have the funds to cover converting the existing 560,000 gallon per day facility from basic treatment to advanced treatment. Well, when you look at the capacity of what we're looking to build is 1.2, they're allocating roughly 60% of that to growth. DEP no longer accepts that you don't grow it X percent per year and that you just agree to pledge your revenue to that. They want that secured. So we've looked at other locales through the state and how they've been able to accomplish that with DEP and the mechanism to do the same. And the capacity for new development is not funded, as I stated. They want a guaranteed payment system of system development charges. So we work with the consultant and looking at what other jurisdictions do, and we came up with a menu of options that we presented to the development community. Clarifies the language as to when and how fees are paid, strengthens the guaranteed revenue stream, allows capacity to be reserved as defined in the agreement, and sets a time frame for those agreements and that reservation. So option one was the one where basically you just stroke a check. You come forward and you want to guarantee X amount of capacity, you stroke a check for that and you move forward. Not everybody has the financial wherewithal to do that, and we totally understand that. Option two was pay over time. This is one scenario laid out here, where it's 25% upon development agreement execution, 20% each 60 days thereafter until 85%, and then the balance, the 15%, holds until it's available. The one thing I added to this that I don't think we did a good job of communicating in that meeting to the development community that led to multiple calls and conversations after that, there can be multiple scenarios under this option. You know, it all depends on what meets the guaranteed revenue needs that we need to demonstrate to DEP and what the financial concerns of that developer are. One local developer contacted me since that meeting and said the model that they're used to seeing is 50% when you execute the agreement, 50% as you pull permits. He said he'd also seen 50% when you execute the agreement and 50% at the tail end. So like I said, there's multiple scenarios. What we're asking the commission to do is approve the overall master agreement and not every nuance of the details of the options. Because DEP, our consultants, our utility attorney says you want to have the flexibility as developments occur to treat them in a way that's beneficial to the city, beneficial to the development, but fair across the board. So option three, and as I stated, there was some discussion about option four. We believe option three is one of the nuances under this. Your system development charges are paid by minimum step-in plan. One way that you could do this, one option, is 10% at the front and 10% per year. But there's other ways to accomplish that same goal. This was the little sheet that we gave to developers that explained what option 1, 2, and 3 would do. So here's an example, and I've run several of them with Mr. Norfleet. I've run several of them with other members of the development community. But 500 ERUs constructed over 10 years, that's your current rate for the impact fees, or will be once the second step happens. You can obtain a surety bond to secure that. Depending on the developer's credit worthiness, that cost of money could be 1%, 2%, 3% on the dollar value. So let's just say the capacity was $5 million for a round number. 1%, you could put a surety bond up, $50,000, secure that capacity, pay just as you've always done as you pull each permit. But you have the hook and the mechanism to demonstrate to DEP that, you know, if something, the market totally fell out and you had a 2008 occurrence, that there's a mechanism that we can make debt service without passing it on to the ratepayers. I believe so. There's been some consternation between me and one of the consultants. He's of the opinion that DEP is basically wanting you to sell out the whole phase before we have constructed it. I personally do not think that's what they're after. But the city manager and some other staff are going to DEP tomorrow or the next day, and they're going to get it from the horse's mouth and see if me or the consultant's right, and then we'll come back and report on that.
I mean, I haven't been in these conversations, but what I've always heard is they need security. Well, I mean, that provides security, right? Like somebody's gonna pay, it's an surety. That's what we do in the city, right? An surety bond. So, and this, in my mind, keeps the little guy in, right? If the little guys are just starting out, they can go get, with good credit, you can get 1% of it. That brings it into a doable range.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, I mean, based on the conversation that we had the other night, based on this, it checks all the boxes for me. I'm fine, and I believe we had even mentioned the concept of just approving of the master agreement and then letting the payment options lie with the developers and staff, which is perfectly fine with me, so.
Well, just to string this example out, Mr. Mayor, so once you start collecting, we're going to have several years before we actually get the thing constructed. We don't start making the debt service payments in full until the construction's complete. So you basically are building your little stabilization fund. If you've secured these with sureties, you've got some mechanism, you've got some hook, you basically can look at it, like I said, like the rate stabilization. Some years you're going to over-collect, some years you're going to under-collect. The DEP doesn't care when you collected the money. What they care about is you can make the 2 annual debt payments that you have to make. So, and the only way that you would ever have to call anybody surety is that that reserve had been depleted. And you still have the ability, if you move forward with 4, 5, 10 developments, whatever, and you've let them all secure it with a surety, and you say, we've got too much risk, we don't need to secure anymore with a surety, that you can require anybody for a period of time to bring cash on the table to build your reserve back up. That is, according to our utility attorney, perfectly legal in these type development agreements and perfectly common. You can look at the developer's history in this and other jurisdictions. You can look at his credit worthiness, if he's had judgments against him, this, that, and other, and you can make your determination as to what form of surety, just like when you do preliminary plat or whatnot, what type is acceptable to you. The good thing about this mechanism, that surety doesn't tie up his credit. If you went with an irrevocable letter of credit, that's against his credit. So you've got some hook, you've got some mechanism. In my opinion, it's more hook and mechanism than FDEP's ever had. In the past, they had no hook whatsoever. So, and I've done capacity sales where I've sold out entire phases of construction before I build it. That's not what they're after here, in my opinion. But I've been wrong twice today, so I could be wrong tomorrow.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
I might have missed this, it might have been discussed, but what about the guy that has a lot or 2 and he wants to build a couple of houses on it? Is he going to go through, what kind of process is he going to go through?
So to that end, every jurisdiction I've ever worked in that sold capacity to development has always reserved a certain amount for economic development prospects, for the onesie-twosies, for if FDEP comes forward and says, hey, we're willing to pay you to extend a sewer line, even if it's outside of your urban services area because all the septic tanks in that area are failing because of high groundwater or whatnot, you always hold back some to where you can do that. That's one of the reasons, that was suggested, tying it to a percentage or whatnot. I would hate to do that, and then down the road, all of a sudden, you have a economic development prospect come forward that was going to create 250 good-paying jobs in Newberry, but you had allocated all your capacity. You want to have some reserve for those kind of occasions. That's an excellent question.
So, I mean, if a person wants to build a house, do they have to go through the process of
No,
a
sir.
surety bond or?
No, sir. They would be paying at the permit window. Their security would be when they got their permit, they would stroke a check.
Option one,
Okay.
cash on the barrelhead.
And that's a one-time knockoff, one-shot deal.
Good, Commissioner. Jamie, while we're talking about Commissioner Farnsworth's question, I'm sorry I had to step out. I talked to the city manager about this, but I haven't had a chance to talk to you. When it comes to option one, that's the option that the little voice in the back of my head says, some smart whippersnapper in 10 years is going to figure out how to work that one. And what I think we've got a whole lot built in, but what would make me feel better is if there was some language, some clause that said you can buy everything from us, right? You can buy your capacity needs, but the release date is up to the city. You can't claim all of it. So if you want to come in and pay for all 2,400, and that would eat up all the capacity, we'll take your $20 million check, but we're not releasing that capacity to you on your timeline. It's on our timeline.
Well, that's an excellent question as well, but I think you already have the mechanism. I would not sign that agreement on any capacity and secure it with cash or anything else until I was at the preliminary plat / construction plan approval. And you've got a locked-in phasing plan that says that you're going to do this and only this. You have the control because you currently approve the construction plans. You approve the preliminary plat. You approve the development agreement. The one thing we are looking at in your land development regulations edit that's coming before the board is there's some language in your LDRs now that says the developer can mix, match, accelerate phases, combine phases anytime basically that he wants to. I recommend, and our consultants recommend, that you take that out and you identify a phasing plan and ensure that he follows the phasing plan and your capacity follows the phasing plan, and that the obligation, the surety or cash or whatever form and option that you approve in the development agreement follows that same window, and you'll have that mechanism of control that you're speaking to.
Okay, so Sandia Park has 2,400 units, has entitlements, has a plan, does not have a plat, does not own 1 gallon of capacity in an existing plant or a future plant right now. That developer comes and says, I'm gonna stroke you a check right now because I want to make sure that all 2,400, we can say, yes, we will take your money, but we won't take your money until you have a plat, and in that plat, it's gonna say that you're planning on building between 75 and 125 houses in a phase, and each phase, and there's gonna be X number of phases, and you don't get that capacity until you turn, what if they turn in a plat for the whole thing?
Well, at the end of the day, this board approves with how it's phased, and you can recommend denial, and that the only way that you'll approve it is if you break it out into phases under X, over X period of time, and the capacity will be tied to that. You want to
But it is possible for the developer to say, here's my plat for 2,400 homes, here's my check for $20 million.
and it's possible for this board to say no.
But that now the fail-safe is the commission has to say no to that because we can't lock up that much capacity.
And I would always tie this to the construction plan or preliminary plat process. I would never tie it to land use and zoning. I wouldn't even tie it to the initial development plan, because what you'll have is people speculating, just to your point. I'm gonna go buy this grass patch. I'm gonna get this much capacity tied to it. I'm gonna get land use and zoning. It's now worth 2 times what I paid for it, and I'm gonna start shopping it. And I'll flip it to somebody else with no intent to build.
And we do have the caveat that if they buy the capacity, they can only sell it back to the city. They can't sell it to anybody else. So
It's
it can't be a
tied to the
to
dirt
land.
or comes to us. And we only have to purchase, yeah.
If they sell the dirt.
If they sell the dirt.
And then at that point, they could say, well, I'll sell you this dirt that's got the capacity, and then that's a negotiation between them and somebody else.
And we only have to buy it back if we choose to. And we have the wherewithal, the financial wherewithal to buy it back.
And I'm not doubting you, Jamie. You know more about this than I do, but I have sat up here many times, and I've heard legal say, well, there's a lot of holes in that contract, and I just don't know that we can necessarily, it doesn't got no teeth in it, so I think we're gonna have to rework the ordinance And so in my mind, it doesn't take a whole lot to go back and just state very clearly that the city of Newberry has the right to release the capacity, even if you've bought up 2,400 permits. City of Newberry has the right to release that capacity based on our needs to ensure that everybody gets a fair share. That's an easy clause to write. It may be a redundancy, but then it's in black and white. It gives this board, a future city manager, their ability to say 20 years from now, hey, and I don't really understand why anyone would ever want to write a check for $20 million to play this game. But again, that's where I go back to that. Some smart somebody sometime is going to figure out, man, they left a loophole in this, and I'm going to figure out how to use that, and I'm going to flip it and make a ton of money on it. I agree, you've got it foolproof, but this is just one more layer where it's written into it that we have the ability to say, yeah, you own all of that, and we're going to, since you gave us 20 million, we're going to immediately begin working on the next phase of the plant, because now we've got the money to do it. But that doesn't mean you can claim it all at one time.
Well, that's one of the reasons I think I'm right and the consultant's wrong about selling out all the units. I think all they want to see is the hook in the mechanism for you to secure debt service. And then you determine if, when you want to release any more capacity, pre-sell any more capacity, or you want to collect it onesie-twosies at the permit window. All we're trying to do is demonstrate guaranteed revenue where we can actually bid the project, because I feel that the projects don't come in lower than the engineer's estimate. An example, I've got the documents were just sent to me tonight, but I haven't had a chance to fully review them. But I read some of the articles on it. City of Milton, Florida has been going through this same scenario, trying to demonstrate funding for years. Their engineer's estimate was $105 million. They finally bid it a couple weeks ago, a month ago, come in the low bid $65 million. In the meantime, though, their board changed. Their board has decided to send their grants back, cancel the applications they got in, and start over on 10 years worth of work and look for a new site to put it, because they didn't like where they were putting it. The main thing I want to see is the bid tab, the design, see if it matches ours and it looks like it's even close to apples, and that'll prove out my point that the cost of the plant construction will come in lower than what the engineers are estimating.
Okay. Yeah, keep on going. I didn't mean to interrupt the presentation. Keep on.
Well, that's basically the gist of it. What the direction we need from the board is basically to authorize us that the master agreement's fine, that everything works within those three options. Every single development agreement will come back to you for approval. We don't go get a hard question answered at DEP this week. Are we supposed to be selling out just enough for debt service, or you want us to sell out the whole thing and we go to designing the next phase before we even need it? And that's basically the direction we need from the board tonight.
Jamie, just to clarify, what you're saying is that the chances that this board ever sees an application that fits any one of those three categories perfectly the way it's written up there is small, but those three categories give staff a latitude, a range to have a negotiation and say, this developer is, predominantly in phase 3 and it's close enough to, we feel like this is secured, but
And we come
it's not all
back to
gonna be the
this
same.
location, and we say, we have negotiated with this developer, here's which option it falls under, here's the nuances from the overarching concept, and you have the ability to approve it or reject it.
Is that good for planning some?
No, sir. By that time, they have land use and zoning. That's before construction plan approval and for preliminary plat. So they're pretty far down the process, and it's less likely that it's just a flip of the dirt.
Mr. Mayor, to your point earlier about buying 100%, that is not something that happens at the front counter here or at the Little Red Schoolhouse. It may start there, but those applications come in. We know it has to get to the city commission, so we'll have 2 weeks, 3 weeks to vet it, to figure out what's healthy about it, what we think the weak points are. It gets advertised in a public hearing that we're considering this agreement. And by that point, we should, if there are nuances that scare us, we should be able to fully report on it. And if there's something that we've discovered between now and then that actually scares us to death, and this is a real gotcha for the city, we'll recommend denial. There's nothing that says the city commission has to do this, or that transaction is going to be completed up front with someone that's unskilled in this. This ultimately comes back to 6 elected officials, 5 of which are going to vote, and will be vetted by staff. Each one will be vetted by staff with a recommendation.
Okay, so we got 3 options. These are 3 options that we had the other night. Jamie, I had a very interesting conversation with Mr. Norfleet about our actuals and what we plan for. So can you tell me, so every time we accept a house, our rate is for 250 a gallon, or 250 gallons a day per house?
So there's actual multiple steps to that, Mr. Mayor. So the Florida Administrative Code and the DEP requires you, for an individual or a general permit to extend a wastewater collection system construction, that you use 350 gallons per ERU per day unless you prove out another number. So I have in other jurisdictions and here taken the water use data and proved out a lower number, which I did here about 4.5 years ago. If I hadn't done that, you'd have been out of capacity here about 2.5 years ago. So right now, when we count an ERU, we count at 250. If you was to extrapolate out what the actual use is based on the amount of customers and what shows up at the plant, your number is actually below 200. So and that's one of the reasons I get so anxious and I track the things by the month, COs versus outstanding flow commitments. Because when Mr. Norfleet or any other builder COs a house, I don't just get 1 ERU's worth of paper capacity back, I get about 2 houses for 1. That's that float that I was talking about. And as the time of year changes, the amount of actual flows that show up at the plant changes. When I figure a permit for Mr. Norfleet or any other developer right now, I have to use actual daily flows plus outstanding flow commitments. So if my outstanding flow commitments go down and my actual daily flows go down, the amount of capacity I have comes up. So we've been doing this, and we'll continue to do that until we get it constructed. Actual capacity, I believe you have enough actual capacity to move forward just like you've been doing for about 5 years or so, pending some dramatic change. But on paper, you're oversubscribed. Basically, you got markers out that DEP thinks could all get called at the same time. Is it realistic that all of those markers are going to get called at the same time? No, it is not. But that's the way to Commissioner Clark's point about bureaucratic red tape, I'm allergic to it too, and I've been trying to work around it for 33 years. But that, we actually gain that capacity back. As you CO houses, I don't just get to 1 unit, I get multiple units back.
So when you report to the commission that we've got 5 to 6 years, that's you taking in the difference between what we have to reserve and the actual. You're taking that into effect already for the commission, but it's based on that dance that you're playing.
Yes.
So when we build a house and they get the CO, it actually helps us on the paper because we get more opened up.
The more phases you have approved and under construction, but you don't actually get COs off of them every month, because I track it every month, because I'm trying to reduce this number and move this number.
So I guess my question, why, if we had to do the study to prove the number, why wouldn't we just go with something closer to the actual number and prevent the dance so that we don't have to do the dance? We know.
DEP will usually not accept anything much lower than 250.
So
Even if
250
you
is pretty
can
much
prove
the
it
low.
out. They figure that there's a problem with your system. Then they want to come spend time investigating what the problem is.
Okay.
So sometimes it's better to get 50 cents instead of stretch for the dollar and not get anything.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Commissioner Clark?
I asked one time, I don't know if we're so far down the line, I just talked to Jamie about, is it worth putting a little committee together to help and do anything? Or,
I've had multiple contractors look at it. I've got prices all over the place, from different contractors. Some that Tripp's had some folks look at it. I've had pricing from out of state. I've had pricing in state. All I'm trying to do is get to where I can bid it, because quite frankly, I can speculate all day. Every contractor can speculate
we don't know.
until you put them bids out and they got to bid it to win it. My main focus for the past year is getting as many bidders as I can, regardless if it's the people I want to do the project, just knowing that they've got the competition. Everybody's going to sharpen their pencil. And if you can get a good set of bids, you can get a good contractor, and you can get a contract in place, and he starts the process, he said, oh, by the way, we further evaluated this. You may want to think about doing that, and you can pick this back up. You may want to think about that, and we can pick this back up. That's the dance that we do on every single contract you have.
I know you're working that hard, Jamie. Is there I know in the world too of contracting, if you give them a 60 to 90 million time we get done, they're always at 90. They're gonna make their money. But is there a contract that says this is the actual and we don't care about a change order unless it's massive and you approve it like a pump or a?
So what we'll do, when we get the bids in, they have to be evaluated to meet the state revolving fund guidelines, all the grant guidelines. We'll bring back a recommendation to the commission that you either award to this bidder or you rebid it. And then from there, there's regulations of how we can negotiate who approves what, change order wise, this, that, or the other. But we are actively looking for every way to reduce the cost. I don't know if the commission remembers, about 6 to 8 months ago, there was a big discussion between staff and engineer and some vendors, and we picked up right at $500,000 on some switchgear. We reduced the cost of the switchgear by right at $500,000. Staff intends to continue to do that, just like we do on anything else we do.
Commissioner Martin?
Jamie, this may already be in there, but satisfy my curiosity. When we put a bid package out, is there an opportunity for us to say, this is what we want spec'd out, this is what we're willing to pay? Versus this is what we want spec'd out, tell us what it's going to cost. And almost be more on the offensive out of the gate versus being
There is a little bit
subjective.
of that. There's a little bit of that, and we have to be careful because you're using grant money. So you can say that you want this blue pump, they make you put an and or equal. And then if they contractor submits something other than that blue pump, then he's got to justify why it's an and or equal. There is allowances for certain things, that this can't be over that, this can't be over that percentage of the bid. But it's not a hard and fast by no means.
I'm not quite sure that answered my question. Like for this plant, can we write the bid and say, we're willing to do it for $60 million? Can you or can't you do it for that amount?
Not under design bid build. I was just gonna say, one of the things, and unfortunately I don't have the luxury in this project, but when I got here, the city always provided an engineer's estimate of cost for the project. I don't do that. Bidders would get in a pre-bid meeting here and say, what's the engineer's estimate of cost? I said, bid it to win it. That's what you get paid to do. I'm not gonna tell you what I'm willing to pay for it. Unfortunately, because of all this financing and these numbers being thrown out there, you do have those high numbers. The way to offset that is competition.
Go to bid.
Yeah, go to bid and competition. If you come back with just one or two, you got a problem. I'm after 6 to 8. But then you gotta make sure the 6 to 8 are apples to apples.
I think Jamie's right. There's out there. I'm sure there's a regulation you can't put it, but I'm reminded of Commissioner Coleman's question in the last one. Tell me when is just more than we can afford, right? And so we may not be able to write it down, but I think hearing that, and I think any developer listening, any contractor that's going to build this, hearing us say, we're not paying $90 million. I can just tell you, we'll sit on our hands. We're not paying $90 million. We're not paying $80 million, right? You get us down into the 60 to 70 million range, and then we might have a conversation, but over 75, we're not paying. Over 80, we're just not paying it, right? Like, that's why I think that the value of that question, and I think that's what I hear from your question as well, is we may not be able to write it down, but we can daggum sure sit up here and say, if it's not closer to that 65 million mark, we're gonna reject all of the bids, because we just think it's too high.
I
We can't afford
guarantee
it.
you, if we don't get enough bids, or the bids come in on the high end of the spectrum and meet the engineer's recommendation, I won't recommend to award it. I would recommend the value engineer it, get people that haven't looked at it to look at it with me, contractors, other engineers, peer review this, that, or the other, say, what am I missing here? Because we do not have a Lamborghini design. We have a very bare bones design, but I have tried to make sure you got good parts under the hood so you don't pay more in maintenance down the road. You either pay it in construction or you pay it in annual maintenance costs. And I've tried to even strike a balance with that and give up on some certain things on the design. What I'm trying to do is make sure that if you don't pay debt service on the damn thing for 20 to 30 years, that every piece in there will make it 20 to 30 years, and that I find the right staff to operate and maintain it to make sure that it makes it at least to 20 to 30 years, if not longer. But if you don't have the right staff and the right components 10 years from now, you'll have a $60, $70 million piece of junk.
Well, I've had requests from the public to form this committee. I know we mentioned it up here. And I got mixed feelings on the committee, because I think if you put me on that committee, I wouldn't know what I'm looking at. How would I? But I do like this. In my mind, and you and I have talked about this, it's been so frustrating because we won't know what it is until we go to bid. And state won't let us go to bid until we can show that whatever it comes in, we can pay for it.
It's a chicken
But
or an egg.
we can, if we can get, if it's not just two bids, then I think that would get us a better result than what a committee would do. But I do think that, I like the idea of more eyes on the books, right? But I don't want to tie up Jamie's time, but if there's anybody out there that just wants to look at the design that knows, I'm sure that we will send it to them.
I've sent it to every contractor and everybody that's asked for it. I forwarded it to a new contractor last week, got another contractor coming in the next week to 10 days to look at it. And I'll continue to beat the bushes until I get everybody that I think has had any interest whatsoever. And I don't think the first time somebody hears about your project should be from a bid service. I try to get them down here, make sure that they're comfortable with the site, they're comfortable with the documents, they see who they're going to be dealing with here, whether it's me or whoever, and that they're wanting to fool with us and we're wanting to fool with them. That's how you establish the relationships. The only time a contractor's price goes up is when he thinks he has risk. If you can allay any concerns he has or demonstrate mechanisms to eliminate his risk, his project price comes down to something reasonable.
Yeah, that's why you can get your pavement for $40,000. But when it works for the city, he said, well, I'm gonna have to hire somebody to deal with the paperwork. I'm gonna have to put in the permits. I gotta do different specs. And all of a sudden that 40,000 turns into 80,000. Gotta get them on.
You're doing like contract.
It would be easier if we were dealing with all our money, but dealing with the state and federal grant and loan dollars, their requirements. We have something that we have to comply with called the BABA Act. Build
So we're
America,
going
Buy
after
America.
5 to 6 bids. We're not paying more than $75 million. You better bid it to win it, right? We're not paying more than 70.
Put a number out.
Yeah.
I'll agree with the things here for the options and let staff do their magic on that. So if there's an agreement,
We got public comment. Don't get too excited.
We don't have any comment.
Yeah. No, up here, public comment. Come on down.
So I guess my question is, if y'all go forward with the agreement, can we be bringing projects forward during this time now?
I think we need you to bring, because we want to build that buffer, right? We need you to bring projects because we want you to start paying so that we've got 2 to 3 years before we actually have to make a payment, that we can be putting this in the bank. Hang on, come up to the mic. Come up to the mic. So the question is, if we agree to the agreement, can we keep moving forward?
In that float, we have some capacities available. We actually approved project or signing permits for him on Country Way South too now. But we need to stay within that until we get the DEP authorization. As soon as we get the DEP authorization that the concept's good and we're not selling out 2,900 units, then we should be able to.
And that happens in
And that's
January.
this week?
No, it happens in January, right? Early in the year?
I think DEP's got to authorize us for funding. When DEP says, okay, Newberry, you got it all, you're good to go to bid, I think at that point, they'll say that you can, you're building X capacity, and you can issue development orders for that capacity, knowing that it'll be available in whatever the completion time frame is. I think right now, until we get that blessing from them, they're saying, nope, you are capped at your current capacity. Come back and see us after we've approved you for construction.
But that's January when we go back in front of that committee.
It is, right now, it's slated for mid-February.
Mid-February.
Before we go to that committee, and what we're doing with Wednesday's trip is saying, hey, you can't fund us and not Archer. They're 15% of our treatment plant, so we go together. And that's the message. We think, well, we're planning on February. If we miss February, if they hold us off and miss February, then we're to May. If we miss May, then we're off to, the next hearing is in August.
That was my question about the actuals versus the reality, to see if there was any wiggle room by us being able to say, well, no, we're not using 250 house, we're really using 150 house. There's really 100 extra gallons there. So the answer to your question is really a mitigated yes.
Well, my question is, this shouldn't hold up any land use or zoning. It'll just hold up.
Right.
Because some of the stuff that's already been approved may not be put in for 5 years.
Right.
Where we're ready to go.
And that's that's why I so quickly said yes, because I think if everyone's in agreement, I think we are gonna get a yes out of Tallahassee. We need y'all to be in agreement so we can get that yes out of Tallahassee, and then once we have that, then absolutely everything keep moving.
And then one of my other questions, I know y'all touched on it about the bid and stuff, but, since you got the plans for the plant and you get the 7 or 8 bidders on it, that'll be a hard bid. That'll be a hard bid on that.
I mean, I was a little bit confused by it, because when we bid this out, every bid I've been, it says we're awarding this for $7 billion, and then there's a 10% cost overrun that the manager's allowed to negotiate, and after that, what? Change orders, thank you.
But that's what you approve in our PO.
Right.
That's for staff. Don't go approve 15% without
Right.
us. Most hard bids, we put it out for bid, and you tell us what it's worth, and whoever's lowest gets the award.
When we put out our request for grant funding and whatnot, at that point in time, we had to identify whether you were going to go traditional design, bid, build, or you were going to do construction manager at risk or alternate form of delivery. We thought we had plenty of time. That was for the mandate. We put everything in design, bid, build. So we're kind of married to that unless we go alter all those agreements. We do have a base bid package. There is one alternate in there where they can offer up in lieu of cast in place concrete, that they could do it with a chrome tank option to see if that might be a lower cost. But other than that, it's a hard bid. Now, once you get into the construction contract, we've got owner direct purchase language in there, and we've actually pre-procured generator, switchgear, and some of that. There may be opportunities within the scope of the contract that you can negotiate some things down or trade some off, but that's after you've executed a contract with the contractor. And this board will identify what authority staff has to approve things without coming back to you.
So it's not a floating, it's gonna be between 65 and 90, because then they'll just come back and spend 90, right? we're not keeping track of the time here, Trip, so just, I like your hat this time, well done.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, like you said, I've talked to Jamie and staff, some on this, and he's kind of got that third, option where we can do the surety and stretch it out a little bit, which I think is good, you know what I mean? Because it helps us spread it out, and we don't have a problem committing, long-term, for it. So I think that agreement, to me, is good, DEP's good with that, and I think our big concerns, kind of one that y'all had, was not letting one guy buy it all up. You know what I mean? Our old deal is we want to keep that on the go because, over the years, city's always been good about increasing the sewer to keep it going. And then the other thing is, I think we've heard it said before, so we're at 200 permits. This next year, we had a great year for some weird reason. It was 400. Are we going to let the 400 go? And so the next year or 2 years later, we have a bad year and it drops down to 150. It can kind of average out on things so we make sure we service the debt. And I'm just curious, the commission, they're not wanting to put a hard cap on any of this, are they?
I mean, what we said at the last meeting was that it's a percentage. We want to grow somewhere between 4 and 6% a year, and that number is going to change. And if we can handle it, and staff says we can handle 7% this year for whatever reason, I think in this scenario, it's more important to collect it while it's hot, so that if you have to make it through a few years, right, you've got that buffer zone. What's it in the electric fund? It's the rate stabilization methodology. But I know we've used numbers, but I think when we use those numbers, it's kind of what is the percentage in this day right now. But it's always our goal is to have a robust 4 to 6% growth rate. I think under 4, you're heading towards stagnation, but it's not I don't want anybody to say, well, we're only going to sell 180 permits a year, or we're only going to sell this, right? It's a moving number that keeps us in a range, right, Mike?
That is correct, and just off of what Tripp said, though, when the commission gives us a target of 200, staff's comfortable when it gets to 220, 225. Staff is not comfortable saying, yeah, let's go to 400. That's doubling what the commission told us to do.
Yeah.
So somewhere, staff's comfortable with a 10% increase, just like we just talked about for change orders. If we're headed towards 220, we're reporting. If we're exceeding 220 significantly, if we're headed to 250 or 300, there's going to be an agenda item, and we're going to be talking to the commission about expectations.
Well, and once we accept a bid, we will have a hard number of how many permits we have to issue to
Agreed.
make that payment.
That is
Then we'll
correct.
know that we need a 183. If we sell 183, we've made the payment this year. So if we've sold 220, now we've helped that rate stabilization fund.
And I've heard Mike say that, the commission says a 200 number, but that's what I'm asking. Is that a 200 number? Because I think your number to service this debt's going to have to be 180 to 240 to 240 permits a year, so you better have a float in there. So if you have a couple bad years and you got a chance to have a good year or two, you better
Well,
make
we have
hay,
Miss
you better
Stacy
make
here.
hay while it's dry.
But I think the 200 number comes from the direction of being in that 4 to 6% range, and 200 was, so that's where that number came from, is that's the number we're at now. It's in that I think it's 5.2%, something like that, right? And so that's where that number came from, but it's not a hard number at all.
Mr. Mayor, the last time it wasn't a vote, it was just feedback from the commission. We had been averaging about 150 for 3 years. We jumped up just above 200. Seemed to me that the community gave more negative feedback than the commission did, but the impression the commission gave to me was, that's fast enough for right now. Let's not go up from that, and we monitor it through plats and building permits, and that's been a year and a half ago. We've been monitoring it, but Mr. Norfleet is correct. We never miss a development meeting where I don't report that the commission's paying threshold right now is about 200 building permits a year. If it went to 210, we wouldn't say anything, but if it exceeded 300, we would absolutely be having a conversation in the next city commission meeting.
I got a follow-up question for Ms.
Real
Stacy.
quick, Mr. Mayor, what are we at, Mike? I know we're
That's what I
coming to
want.
the end of the
Can
year.
Ms. Stacy, can you come up and
Is there a?
tell us how many, where we're at now, and
I know
if
we
you
had
know
some
off the cusp,
add-ons.
what percentage is that growth rate right now?
She may know more accurately than me. The last time I got feedback was 2024 was a little bit slower pace than 2023. So I think we did 220 something in 2023, and I was under the impression we were going to come in between 200 and 215 this year. And if you have
We
an
love to
update-
correct the city manager in Newberry, so if he got it wrong, don't feel, is that, say it one more time for the microphone, say your name, will you?
I'm
Please.
Stacy Hectus, the Community Development Director, and Mr. New is correct.
So
That's,
this year, we're on track for how many?
I'm thinking, we've got, 3 more weeks left of the year, probably 215, 220.
Okay. 'Cause
Close.
that's what I said, and everybody down here was like, no, it's way over, and I said, well, that's what I thought, around 220.
And I can definitely tomorrow do a tally, and then we can look and see what's coming up in the next couple weeks that we're
Well,
know
I'd
about.
appreciate it.
And we can email.
No, actually, I
We
think
can
it's.
we can send you a good old email.
It's Christmas, but I want, because when people say to me, you're building 900 houses a year.
Oh, no.
I say.
No.
No, I tracked the permits, and it's, the biggest we've had was 220, right? But then when I said 220, some of the commissioners were like, no, you're way off, Mayor. So I do want to know, because I think that there's a difference in our perception driving around and the reality.
Yes.
And that
It sure
reality
seems
is
like it.
based on how many,
Jordan just wants to be right.
thank you, he knows, yeah. Trip, did you got anything else? That it?
Like you said, I just, we don't want to get going and then you need to service the debt. We're going to hold it at, even at 6% more, if you're at 200 and you're 6% more, what are you at? 12 more permits. That's pretty slim, you know what I mean? So, like I said, when the sun's shining, let's make hay, and when it ain't, let's don't, because I think you're going to need a wider range in there, because the highs are going to be higher and the lows are going to be lower. You know what I mean?
don't think
Because
the
you're gonna
commission's
fall.
going to move forward if they've got to issue more than, I don't know, 175, 180 a year. There's got to be a cushion. So if we have to sell the prime peak of what we're at in order to make the debt service, and if we go back 3 years ago, that was the sole nature of the conversation when the question was how much we can afford. It was how many houses do we have to build to pay the debt service? Because if in 2008, we're building 80 houses, 85 houses a year, that's the worst it gets. Right now, in a peak, we're doing 220. So in my mind, a conservative range would be somewhere around 100. If we can sell 175 permits and make the debt, that gives that cushion, maybe 185. But if we've got to keep going at this rate, that gets a little tight. I agree 100%. At that point, you really do have to say, but I don't know in terms of all the other infrastructure, what percentage you can grow and keep up with everything,
Yeah. Well, I was just kind of curious on that. I mean, I think they've done a good job on the plan. I think the plan's good. I sure think we need the expansion, and like I said, I appreciate them being open on it. And I think all y'all's concerns, we had some of the same concerns too. You know what I mean? And I think it's well pointed out. A lot of them get these plats and get ready to go, and then nothing happens. You know what I mean? We sure don't want to be counting against the sewer plant.
right?
And I thought it was good when we took the trailer park back, you know what I mean, on that, if they didn't move forward, you know what I mean? Because like you said, it counts
Upscale
against.
RV resorts, yeah.
It's all perspective, right?
Yeah.
And, but no, like I said, I appreciate y'all homing down on this thing, and like I said, I just wanted to make sure on our land use stuff that we got in now, this doesn't stop it up, you know what I mean?
That's our goal too.
All right. Well, like
We
I said, I
appreciate your feedback.
appreciate y'all having it on the workshop, appreciate all the staff's hard work and everything, so
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you guys.
Mike, did you have anything else?
Just a little clarity so that it is good with everybody. We have, round numbers, 3,000 rooftops in Newberry today. 200 building permits is 6.7%. So our best year was about 225. That's a little over 7%. So those are the growth rates. And from a staffing perspective, the currently staffing in the building department, 225 is a pretty hectic pace, but it doesn't kill anybody. We've got the adequate staffing to accommodate that. I've not heard, and I didn't mean to communicate, that the deviation on 200 would be 6%. It's probably higher, in my mind, it's probably 25 or 30 higher, somewhere up to 250 is where staff's comfortable with all that. So that percentages of the total rooftops in Newberry, and to the mayor's point, every year, 6% of our rooftops is going to be a little bit higher number than it was last year because we added 200 rooftops to the count. So, and it is a rule of thumb. I mean, we try to average 5%, but to the mayor's point, it really is more the bracket of 4 to 6%. A pure 5% is 150 rooftops. And we did that really well for the 3 years preceding last. So that's just the general round numbers. We don't get caught up on specifically a number of permits, but in round numbers, we're looking at 200 to 220 being the upper end with our current population of 3,000 rooftops. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
So whenever you say staff is comfortable with something, does that mean that comfortable as far as being able to do the inspections, capacity, or?
To review building permits with our current staffing, review permits, manage the permits, perform the inspections, issue the COs. Right now we're handling 225 homes a year. If someone suggested to me that we're gonna go to 400, then you're gonna see the budget request come in that we've gotta staff up. We can't do 400 building permits a year with our current staffing.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if we, at some point, have to add staff on.
Well, and that was entirely where this conversation came from, was you guys said to Mike, hey, watch those growth rates, and as they inch up, let us know so that we're not under the gun. We go out and staff up, right? Because we want to keep that rate, and that rate is gonna get more houses built, more 6% will be. So it's just about making sure that we can inspect everything, we can handle it, right? And we need to know what that rate is. So if it's 7%, 8%, well, it's time to bring in another inspector, right?
It would make it a lot easier for contractors.
And I think we've been doing something.
A flip side of that, Mr. Mayor, though, is that staffing is a critical part of that consideration. It's not the only part of that consideration. And so we can staff up to inspect 500 homes a year, but we may not have the water mains or the force mains or the roadway. So this accommodating for growth is all infrastructure, not just a wastewater plant. And that, looking at staff is just one of the half dozen criteria that we're evaluating on our ability to handle growth rates that exceed 5 or 6%.
I was kind of wondering, if it's just a staffing issue, or that's?
It's not just a staffing.
It comes back to whether you want to pave 30th or not, right? If you
It
want to grow at
does.
10%, you need to pave 30th, right? If you want to grow at 3%, leave it a dirt road.
We can develop a plan for
Commissioner.
all of it, but some infrastructure takes longer than staffing up.
Commissioner Clark?
I just had, Mike, is that 3,000 city limit wide, or is that just what I call proper?
It's
That's
city
what's
limit wide.
City limit wide.
City limit wide, and that's round numbers.
No, I'm just, that's good. I mean, so that's completely city limit wide.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Sir, you came out all night. You want to say anything? Come on down. Come on down. You don't want to say one word. My friend in the back here. He texts me every meeting. All right, we are. Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a great time. We are adjourned.
That's a good comment.
One day we